I always thought my father was different from other dads. Growing up, he'd tell me that family came first, no matter what. Guess that was just another one of his lies. My name is Callie, and I was 17 when my father decided to blow up our lives. It happened on a Tuesday, which seems wrong somehow. Life-changing moments should happen on more dramatic days, like stormy Sundays or mysterious Fridays. But no, it was just a regular Tuesday afternoon when I came home from school to find my mom sitting at our kitchen table, staring at a piece of paper like it might bite her. "Mom?" I dropped my backpack by the door. She didn't look up. "Mom, what's wrong?" The kitchen smelled like burnt coffee, and I noticed the pot had boiled dry. Mom never let that happen. She was always perfectly put together, the successful optometrist who managed her own clinic while somehow making it to every one of my art shows. She held out the letter with trembling fingers. "Your father left this." My stomach dropped. I took the paper, noticing how expensive it felt. Dad always did like the finer things in life. The letter was typed, not handwritten, which somehow made it worse. "Dear Meredith and Callie," I read aloud, my voice getting shakier with each word. "I've realized I can no longer continue living this life. The pressures of maintaining our lifestyle, the constant expectations. I need something simpler. I'm sorry, but I have to do what's best for me. I'll have my lawyer contact you about arrangements." I stopped reading. The rest was just details about money and accounts, cold and businesslike. Like we were some corporation he was divesting from, not his family. "He didn't even sign it," I whispered. Mom finally looked up at me, her eyes red-rimmed but dry. "He took most of his things this morning after we left." I thought he was going to work. I ran upstairs to their bedroom. Mom's bedroom now, I guess. The closet door stood open, showing empty spaces where Dad's designer suits used to hang. His dresser drawers were pulled out, half empty like someone had ransacked them. On his nightstand, there was a single photo left behind, the three of us at my 16th birthday, all smiles and perfect poses. Picture-perfect family. My phone buzzed. A text from Dad. "I'm sorry, Princess. Sometimes people need to change. You'll understand when you're older." I wanted to throw my phone against the wall. Princess. His special nickname for me since I was little. Now it felt like another lie. "He's not answering my calls," Mom said from the doorway. She looked lost, standing there in her professional dress and heels. The clinic called. "I have patients waiting, but I'll call and reschedule them," I said, already pulling up the clinic's number. "You should rest, Mom." She nodded absently, then turned and walked away. I heard her bedroom door close softly. That's when I noticed something odd. Dad's laptop was still on his desk, which wasn't like him at all. He guarded that thing like it held state secrets. The screen was dark, but when I moved the mouse, it lit up. He hadn't logged out. His email was still open, and right there at the top was a message from someone named Tessa Monroe. The preview showed just enough. "Everything's ready for your new life. Can't wait to." I clicked it, but a password prompt appeared. Of course. But now I knew there was more to Dad's simpler life story. Much more. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Dad. "Don't try to contact me for a while. I need space to figure things out." I typed back. "Sure thing, Dad. Take all the space you need. Just remember, you taught me that family comes first. And you also taught me how to hold a grudge." Then I blocked his number and started planning. The next few weeks felt like walking through fog. Mom threw herself into work, seeing patients from sunrise to sunset. Maybe she thought if she kept moving, kept smiling at strangers and fixing their vision, she wouldn't have to face how broken our own lives had become. I was doing my calculus homework at the clinic's reception desk when Mrs. Chin, our longtime receptionist, touched my shoulder. "Callie, honey, your mother hasn't come out of her office for 3 hours. The waiting room is full." I looked up to see 6 irritated patients checking their watches. Mom had never run this late before. Never. "I'll check on her," I said, already dreading what I might find. Through the frosted glass of her office door, I could see Mom's silhouette. She was just sitting there, staring at her computer screen. I knocked softly. "Dr. Harper? Your 3 o'clock is waiting." Using her professional title felt wrong, but I needed to snap her out of whatever this was. When she didn't respond, I went in. The office smelled stale, like coffee gone cold and unopened mail. Mom's usually immaculate desk was cluttered with patient files. Her makeup was perfect, but her eyes were vacant. "Mom?" I touched her arm. "What's wrong?" She blinked, like she was coming out of a trance. "Oh, I was just reviewing some insurance claims." She gestured vaguely at her screen, which was showing Dad's Facebook page. It was empty. He'd deleted everything. "The Chin family is waiting. They drove an hour to get here." "Right, of course." She stood up, smoothing her lab coat. "I just need a minute to." Her voice trailed off as she stared at a framed photo on her wall, her and Dad at their medical school graduation. Young and in love, before he decided plastic surgery was more lucrative than family medicine. "I'll reschedule the afternoon appointments," I said. "You should go home." "No." The sharpness in her voice made me step back. "No, I'm fine. I can't let people down. I can't be like—" She didn't finish, but we both knew what she meant. Like him. That evening, I was making dinner when our doorbell rang. I opened it to find my grandparents, Evelyn and Walter, standing there with concerned faces and casserole dishes. "We brought dinner," Grandma said, pushing past me into the kitchen. "Where's your mother?" "Still at the clinic. She's been working late." Grandpa set down his dish and fixed me with a serious look. "And how are you holding up, kiddo?" I started to say, "Fine," but my voice cracked. Grandpa pulled me into a hug, and for a moment, I let myself be small again, let someone else be the strong one. "We know about the missed appointments," Grandma said, opening our fridge and frowning at its empty shelves. "And the unreturned calls to the insurance company. Your mother's practice can't run itself." "I'm handling it," I said, pulling away from Grandpa. "I've been learning the billing system, and Mrs. Chin is helping me with the scheduling." "You're 17, Grandma said sharply. "You should be worrying about prom and college applications, not running a medical practice." My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Your father asked me to check on you. Hope you're doing okay. Tessa." The casserole dish slipped from my hands, shattering on the floor. Grandma rushed over, but I barely noticed the mess. "Callie?" Grandpa's voice seemed far away. "What is it?" I showed them the text. Grandma's face hardened. "Tessa Monroe. That little." She caught herself. She was his assistant at the surgery center, always hanging around, asking about our family vacations, our finances. "How long?" I asked. "She started working for him about 8 months ago." 8 months. The same time Dad started staying late at the office, started questioning our lifestyle choices, started pulling away. My phone buzzed again. "Tessa, he misses you. Maybe we could meet for coffee?" I typed back, "Thanks for checking in. Quick question. Did he buy you that Cartier bracelet before or after he decided he needed a simpler life?" I deleted the message without sending it. Instead, I smiled and saved her number. Sometimes revenge requires patience. And I had all the time in the world. It's funny how the truth always comes out in the most ordinary places. For me, it was at Riverside Coffee, where I'd been camping out with my laptop, digging through Dad's financial records. Being the family's unofficial accountant had its perks, like still having access to all his passwords. That's when I saw them. Dad and Tessa were sitting at a corner table, his hand resting on hers. So much for his simpler life story. He looked different, wearing jeans and a casual shirt instead of his usual tailored suits. She was laughing at something he'd said, twirling her hair with her free hand. The same hand that wore a Cartier bracelet I recognized from Dad's credit card statements, listed as a business expense. I felt sick, but I forced myself to stay put. They hadn't noticed me behind my laptop screen. I started recording on my phone, just in case. "The transfer went through," Tessa said, loud enough for me to hear. "But Lucas, are you sure about selling the beach house? Meredith's name is still on the deed." Dad leaned forward. "It's being handled. The lawyer says since I've been paying the taxes and maintenance solely from my personal account for the past 5 years, I can make a case for full ownership." The beach house. Mom's favorite place in the world, where she'd spent every summer growing up. Where she'd always talked about retiring. I just worry, Tessa continued, about Callie finding out. She's been poking around the accounts. Dad's face darkened. She's too young to understand. Sometimes you have to be cruel to be kind. The money from the sale will set up our new life, give us the fresh start we need. I'd heard enough. Standing up, I walked straight to their table. Hey, Dad. Tessa. Having a simple lunch? They jumped apart like guilty teenagers. Dad's face went from shock to angry to that fake calm he used with difficult patience. Princess, he started, but I cut him off. Don't. My voice was steady, surprising even me. Just don't. You know what's funny? I actually believed you when you said you needed to find yourself. That this was about simplifying your life. It is, he insisted. You don't understand the pressure I've been under. The pressure of hiding your girlfriend? Or the pressure of figuring out how to steal Mom's beach house? Tessa stood up, grabbing her designer purse. I should go. Stay, I said. You're family now, right? That's what the joint bank account means? The one you opened 3 months before Dad left. Dad's face went pale. How did you? I'm not stupid, Dad. I'm just thorough. Like you taught me to be. I pulled out my phone, showing them the recording app. Mom's lawyer will love hearing about your plans for the beach house. Callie, his voice turned pleading, let's discuss this privately. Like adults. Adults? I laughed. Adults don't abandon their families. Adults don't steal their wife's inheritance. And adults definitely don't expense their girlfriend's jewelry as business costs. People were staring now. Tessa grabbed her coat, practically running for the door. Dad stood up, reaching for my arm, but I stepped back. Don't touch me. Ever again. I gathered my things, hands shaking. Oh, and Dad? Remember when you taught me about karma? About how everything comes back around eventually? He froze, recognition dawning in his eyes. It was the same thing he'd said to me when I was 12, after catching me in a lie about breaking his expensive camera. Watch your back, I said softly. Everything comes back around. Outside, the air felt too thick to breathe. My phone buzzed, a text from Tessa. We should talk. There's more you need to know. I smiled, remembering Grandma's words about patience. Sometimes revenge isn't about grand gestures. Sometimes it's about slowly, methodically, taking apart someone's carefully constructed lies, piece by piece. I texted back, coffee tomorrow? Same place. Bring the bank statements. Then I called Mom's lawyer. It was time to stop playing defense. Dad wanted a simpler life? Fine. By the time I was done, that's exactly what he'd have. The envelope from the Rhode Island School of Design sat unopened on my desk for 3 days. Full scholarship. My dream school. Everything I'd worked for since I first picked up a paintbrush. And I couldn't open it. You're being ridiculous, Grandma Evelyn said, watching me stare at the envelope during our weekly dinner. This is your future we're talking about. I pushed my untouched lasagna around my plate. Mom needs me here. The clinic. The clinic needs a professional office manager, Grandpa Walter interrupted, not a 17-year-old trying to be both student and savior. Mom looked up from her wine glass. She'd barely touched her food, too. What clinic? The silence that followed was deafening. It was the first time she'd acknowledged the reality of her practice's slow collapse. I've got it under control, I said quickly. Mrs. Chin and I have been. No. Mom's voice was sharp. Show me the books. I pulled up the clinic's accounts on my laptop. The screen reflected in Mom's glasses as she scrolled through months of missed insurance payments, canceled appointments, and mounting debt. Oh God, she whispered. How did I let this happen? It's not your fault, I started, but she held up her hand. When did the warning letters start? I hesitated. 3 months ago. But I've been negotiating with. 3 months. She stood up so suddenly her chair tipped over. You've been handling this alone for 3 months? Someone had to. The words burst out before I could stop them. You were barely functioning. Dad left us with nothing but debt and lies, and someone had to keep things from falling apart. That someone shouldn't have been you. Mom's voice cracked. You're supposed to be thinking about college, about art school, about She gestured at the RISD envelope. I can defer for a year, I said. Help get the clinic back on track. Like hell you will. Grandpa pulled out his checkbook. We're hiring a proper office manager tomorrow. And you're going to open that envelope. We don't need charity, Mom and I said simultaneously. Grandma slammed her hand on the table. Enough. This isn't charity, it's family. And family doesn't let pride destroy dreams. She fixed Mom with a stern look. Or practices. My phone buzzed. A text from Tessa. Meeting your father's lawyer tomorrow. He's trying to force the beach house sale. I have proof he falsified documents. Interested? Another buzz. This time from Dad. Callie, whatever Tessa tells you is a lie. She's trying to extort money from me. Please don't trust her. I looked up to find everyone staring at me. What? Your hands are shaking, Grandma said softly. I showed them the texts. Mom's face went white. The beach house? But that's been in my family for generations, Grandpa finished. And it's staying that way. He pulled out his phone. I'm calling our lawyer. No, I said, surprising myself. Let me handle this. Absolutely not, Mom said. You're done being the adult here. Mom, I have recordings. Bank statements. Proof of what he's done. But Tessa will only talk to me. I met her eyes. Trust me. Please. The room fell silent. Finally, Mom picked up the RISD envelope and handed it to me. Open it. But, open it. Because whatever happens with your father, whatever happens with the clinic, you are not sacrificing your future. Not for him, not for me, not for anyone. My hands trembled as I tore open the envelope. Full scholarship. Starting this fall. I looked at my phone again, at the competing texts from Dad and Tessa. Then at my family around the table. Mom, Grandma, Grandpa, all watching me with love and worry. Okay, I said. Here's what we're going to do. I'm meeting Tessa tomorrow. We're saving the beach house. We're fixing the clinic. And then, I held up the acceptance letter. Then I'm going to art school. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying someone else's life. Sometimes it's about refusing to let them destroy yours. Tessa chose an upscale restaurant for our meeting, probably expecting Dad to foot the bill like usual. Instead, she found me waiting with Mom's lawyer. Patricia Chen, Mrs. Chen's daughter, and the last person anyone would want to cross in a legal battle. This wasn't the arrangement, Tessa said, clutching her designer purse like a shield. Neither was stealing my mother's beach house, I replied, gesturing to the empty chair. Sit. She sat, her perfect makeup not quite hiding the shadows under her eyes. Lucas will be furious. Lucas isn't here. Patricia opened her laptop. But his financial records are. Along with some very interesting emails about property transfers and backdated documents. Tessa's fingers drummed nervously on the table. I could lose everything. Funny, I said. That's exactly what you helped him do to us. The waiter approached, but Patricia waved him away. This wasn't a social call. He promised we'd start fresh, Tessa said, her voice small. No baggage, no complications. Just a simple life together. I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. Simple? Is that what you call draining my college fund? Or forging Mom's signature on the beach house papers? I didn't know about the college fund, she whispered. He said all the money was his. Show her, Patricia said. I pulled out my phone, playing the recording from the coffee shop. Tessa's face crumpled as she heard herself discussing the beach house scheme. That's inadmissible, she said weakly. In court, maybe. Patricia smiled. But the forensic accountant's report? The falsified documents? Those are very admissible. My phone buzzed. Dad. I declined the call, but the text started immediately. Where's Tessa? What are you doing? Don't do anything stupid, princess. Princess? The word felt like acid now. He's going to know I talked to you, Tessa said, reaching for her purse. Good. I placed a folder on the table. Because here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign these papers, admitting to your role in the financial fraud. Then you're going to tell us everything. Every account, every scheme, every lie. And if I don't? Patricia leaned forward. Then instead of just losing Lucas, you'll lose your freedom. Financial fraud carries serious prison time. Tessa's hand shook as she reached for the papers. He'll never forgive me. That's the point. I watched her sign. He needs to learn that actions have consequences. My phone kept buzzing. Dad was calling everyone now. Mom, my grandparents, even Mrs. Chin at the clinic. The desperation in his messages grew. Please, Princess, let's talk about this. I can explain everything. Don't destroy what I've built. What he'd built. Like we were just collateral damage in his grand plan. There's something else, Tessa said, pulling out her own folder. Something he doesn't know I kept. Inside were more documents, bank transfers, emails, plans dating back over a year. Dad hadn't just abandoned us on a whim. He'd been planning it, methodically dismantling our financial security while building his escape route. Why? I asked, my voice cracking. Why show me this? Tessa met my eyes for the first time. Because he's doing the same thing to me now. There's another woman, younger, simpler. No complicated history. She laughed bitterly. I'm just last month's model. The restaurant door burst open. Dad stood there, face red, designer suit askew. What have you done? I stood up, Patricia beside me. Only what you taught me, Dad. Family comes first, remember? I'm just protecting what's left of mine. His face contorted. By destroying me? Your own father. No, I said quietly. You did that yourself. One lie at a time. As security led him out, I watched the man who'd taught me about karma learn its hardest lesson. Sometimes the simplest life is the one you're running from. The news about Dad's arrest broke on a Sunday morning. By Monday, his face was everywhere, local papers, social media, even the morning news. Prominent plastic surgeon accused of financial fraud. They used his most flattering headshot, of course. Image was always everything to him. I was in the beach house, sorting through old photos when Mom called. He's asking to see you, she said. Says he'll sign everything over, no contest, if you'll just meet with him. I stared at a photo in my hands, Dad teaching me to swim right here at this beach. His hands steady and sure under my small body as I learned to float. No, Callie. Mom hesitated. The police found something in his office. Letters. Drawings. They think you should see them. The photos slipped from my fingers. What drawings? An hour later, I sat in an interrogation room, staring at a familiar sketchbook. My sketchbook. The one that had disappeared years ago, filled with my earliest attempts at art. But mixed in with my childish drawings were others. Detailed, beautiful sketches signed LH. He copied them, I whispered. Detective Martinez shook her head. According to the dates, his came first. By several years. The room felt too small suddenly. Each page showed the same subjects I'd drawn. The beach house, Mom's garden, our family dog. But Dad's versions came before mine, some dated before I was even born. There's more, Martinez said, sliding over an envelope. Inside were letters, dozens of them, never sent, spanning my entire childhood. Dear Princess, one read, today you drew your first real picture. I pretended to be surprised, but I've been waiting for this moment. Art runs in our blood, even if I never had the courage to pursue it. Maybe you'll be braver than I was. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. Each letter marked a milestone, my first art show, my college applications, my acceptance to RISD. He'd been watching, documenting, sharing his secret passion through silent pages. My phone buzzed. Tessa, he's being released on bail. But there's something else you need to know. About why he really left. I ignored it. Another buzz. This time from an unknown number. Your father's medical license is under review. Without character witnesses, he'll lose everything. Hospital board. The final letter in the pile was dated the day he left. Dear Princess, I've spent my life running from who I really am. Built a perfect facade while suffocating inside. You're braver than I ever was, pursuing your art, living authentically. I can't bear to let my failures taint your future. Better to leave now than watch you become like me, trapped in a life built on lies. He's waiting outside, Martinez said softly. Should I send him in? I looked at the drawings again, his and mine, side by side. 2 generations of artists, one who fled and one who fought. No, I said, standing up. Not yet. Outside, Dad sat on a bench, head bowed. No designer suit now, just wrinkled clothes and 3 days of stubble. He looked up as I passed, but I kept walking. My phone buzzed again. Tessa, he didn't leave because of me. He left because of the art scholarship he secretly set up for you. The money he stole, it was all for your future. He just couldn't face telling you the truth about his own abandoned dreams. I stopped, my hand on my car door. The truth about revenge is that it's easy when you can paint someone as a villain. Much harder when you see their humanity, their brokenness, their reflection in your own mirror. But some broken things, once shattered, can never be made whole again. Can they? My phone buzzed one last time. Dad, I never deserved to be your father. But I'm proud that you became the artist I was too afraid to be. I got in my car and drove away, leaving him on that bench. Sometimes the hardest part of revenge isn't executing it, it's deciding whether you still want to. The call came at midnight. Grandma and Grandpa's car had skidded on black ice. They never made it to the hospital. I stood in their empty house 3 days later, surrounded by memories and the weight of unexpected inheritance. Mom was in the kitchen, going through papers with Patricia, while I wandered rooms that still smelled like Grandma's perfume. That's when I found it, a letter addressed to me, written in Grandpa's shaky hand just weeks before. Dearest Callie, your father came to see us last month. He told us everything, about the art scholarship fund he'd been secretly building for you, about his own abandoned dreams, about his fear of becoming his father. We didn't tell you because it wasn't our story to tell. But remember, revenge is a circle that never closes. Forgiveness is the only way forward. Love, Grandpa. My phone buzzed. Dad, I heard about your grandparents. I'm at the beach house. Please come. I showed Mom the text. She looked at the inheritance papers, then at me. Whatever you decide, I'll support you. The beach house lights were on when I arrived. Dad sat on the porch steps, holding something wrapped in brown paper. Before you say anything, he started, but I cut him off. Why didn't you tell me about the art fund? He looked down at the package in his hands. Because I was ashamed. Not of you, of me. I let my father convince me that art wasn't a real career. Spent my life building this perfect image instead of being true to myself. Then I saw your talent, your courage to pursue what you love. So you left? Because I reminded you of your failures. I left because I couldn't bear to see you sacrifice your dreams like I did mine. He unwrapped the package, a sketchbook, filled with recent drawings. I've been doing therapy. Started drawing again. Trying to find my way back to who I was supposed to be. At what cost? My voice cracked. You destroyed our family. I know. He stood up, leaving the sketchbook on the step. The inheritance from your grandparents, it's more than enough for your college fund. You don't need my money anymore. This was never about money. No, he agreed. It was about truth. And mine is that I failed you. Not just when I left, but every day I pretended to be someone I wasn't. Every day I taught you that image matters more than authenticity. The wind carried the salt air, reminding me of childhood summers here. Of Dad teaching me to mix watercolors on the porch before he stopped drawing altogether. Grandpa's last letter, I said, told me that revenge is a circle that never closes. Dad nodded, tears in his eyes. He was right. I've been running in circles my whole life. I picked up the sketchbook, flipping through pages of familiar scenes, the beach house, Mom's garden, me at various ages. But these weren't copied from old drawings. These were new, raw, honest. I'm selling my practice, he said quietly. Moving somewhere smaller. Going to focus on reconstructive surgery for trauma patients. Try to do some actual good in the world. I thought about the RISD acceptance letter on my desk. About Mom's clinic, now secure thanks to my grandparents' legacy. About the weight of secrets and the cost of dreams deferred. I can't forgive you, I said. Not yet. I know. But I held up the sketchbook. Maybe we can start drawing together again. Sometimes. He smiled, sad but genuine. I'd like that. As I drove home, I realized something about revenge and forgiveness. They're both forms of art. One destroys, the other creates. And like any artist, we have to choose which masterpiece we want to leave behind. I chose to create. 5 years passed like watercolors bleeding into each other. I graduated from RISD, opened my own gallery in Providence, and got engaged to Ethan. Mom's clinic thrived, and she started smiling again, real smiles that reached her eyes. Dad kept his word. Sold his practice, moved to a smaller city, focused on reconstructive surgery for trauma victims. We met occasionally at the beach house, sharing coffee and sketchbooks, rebuilding something different from what we'd lost. Not better, not worse. Just different. Today, I stood in my gallery's back room, staring at the centerpiece of my new exhibition, a large canvas showing the beach house at sunset. Painted in 2 distinct styles that somehow work together. Dad's precise lines merged with my looser strokes, creating something neither of us could have made alone. "It's beautiful," Mom said from behind me. She'd come for the opening, wearing the confidence that came with healing. "Your grandparents would have loved it." "Think so?" I touched the frame. Sometimes I wonder if they'd understand. About Dad, about everything. They understood more than we knew. She handed me an envelope, another letter from Grandpa, dated just before the accident. Meant to be opened today. "Dear Callie," it read, "by now you've learned that revenge and forgiveness aren't opposites. They're 2 sides of the same coin. The real choice isn't between them, but between holding on and letting go. Your father is learning this. So are you. Love, Grandpa." The gallery doors opened. Dad walked in, grayer now but standing straighter. No designer suits anymore, just comfortable clothes and paint-stained fingers. "The prodigal father returns," I said, but without bitterness. He smiled, touching the painting's corner where our signatures intertwined. "I brought something for the exhibition." He pulled out a small, worn sketchbook. My first one. From medical school, before I let fear win. I opened it carefully. The pages were filled with anatomical drawings, but not cold medical illustrations. These captured the humanity in each subject, the curve of a mother's hand holding her child. The dignity in an elderly man's stance despite his injuries. "You could have been great," I said. "No," he replied, looking at our joint painting. "But you are, because you chose truth over appearance. Courage over fear." He paused. "Everything I should have taught you, but had to learn from you instead." The gallery began filling with people. Ethan arrived, carrying champagne. Mom's new partner, a kind-eyed pediatrician, helped arrange the refreshments. Even Tessa came, now happily married to someone else, carrying her own creative dreams. "Ready?" Ethan asked, squeezing my hand. I looked at our gathered family, broken, rebuilt, expanded. At the paintings that told our story, Mom's clinic waiting room sketched in hopeful strokes, Grandma's garden in full bloom. Dad's new trauma center where art therapy helped patients heal. "Almost," I said, pulling out my current sketchbook. "One last thing." I added a final touch to our beach house painting, a small signature in the corner for ENW, who taught us that love is the finest art of all. Dad saw it and nodded, understanding. Mom wiped away tears. And I realized that revenge had never been the answer. The real masterpiece wasn't in destroying what hurt us, but in creating something new from the broken pieces. "Now I'm ready," I said, opening the gallery doors. Because sometimes the greatest art comes from our scars, and the finest galleries are built in the spaces between forgiveness and truth. Dad taught me that in the end. Not through his words or his failures, but through the courage to finally paint his own life honestly. And that's a lesson worth keeping.
In a high-rise apartment in Manhattan, Amy Wilson sat at her desk, concentrating on a design project with a looming deadline. As the setting sun streaming through the window made her copper-colored hair shine, she was making final adjustments while working on her graphic tablet. Her workspace as a freelance graphic designer working from home was neat yet creatively stimulating. The sound of keys jangled and the front door opened as her husband Richard returned home. "I'm back, Amy," he called out in a slightly tired voice. "Welcome home," Amy turned around with a warm smile. How was your day? Richard loosened his tie and sank into the sofa. The usual. 2 client meetings, 1 team meeting. And mountains of paperwork, he replied while pouring himself a glass of water. How about you? I've nearly finished the logo design for the new client. Amy proudly showed him her work. With a few more adjustments, I should be able to submit it tomorrow. Richard had built a successful career as a sales manager at a major insurance company. Tall with an imposing physique yet a gentle personality, he was trusted by both his workplace colleagues and clients. He had met Amy 5 years ago at a party hosted by a mutual friend and fell in love at first sight. He was captivated by Amy's straightforwardness and creativity, and she was drawn to Richard's sincerity and kindness. Their married life was generally smooth. While cherishing their careers, they occasionally discussed having children in the future. The only shadow over their relationship was Richard's mother, Beverly. "Oh, by the way, Mom called," Richard said casually, missing how Amy's expression slightly clouded. "She was talking about your birthday next week. She says she has a special gift for you." Amy tried to maintain her smile. "How thoughtful of her," she said with a faint tension in her voice. It had been 15 years since Beverly lost her husband, John. While outwardly elegant and sophisticated, she possessed a sharp intellect and strong will beneath the surface. Her only son Richard was the center of her life, and she believed no one could take her son's affection away from her. From the beginning of Richard and Amy's marriage, Beverly had been cold toward Amy. While acting polite on the surface, it was clear to Amy that Beverly saw her as the woman who stole her son. Through small criticisms, sarcastic remarks, or overly kind gestures, Beverly always found ways to make Amy uneasy. "Mom really seems to want to improve her relationship with you," Richard said in a hopeful voice. "This gift might be a sign of reconciliation." Amy suppressed a sigh. Richard always tried to see the best in his mother. It was one of his virtues, but sometimes it blinded him. "Perhaps," she answered. "Did she tell you what the gift is?" "She said it's a secret. But she mentioned, you'll be surprised." Amy smiled despite her anxiety. Beverly's surprises usually made her uncomfortable in some way. But for Richard's sake, she continued to maintain her composure. "I'm looking forward to it," she said. On her birthday, relatives and friends gathered at Amy and Richard's home for an intimate party. Though nervous, Amy felt reassured being surrounded by friends in her own apartment. Around 3 in the afternoon, the doorbell rang, and when Richard opened the door, there stood Beverly. With perfectly set silver hair and dressed in an expensive tweed suit, she exuded the dignity of a queen. "Thank you for coming," Richard embraced her. "Of course I'd come. It's Amy's special day," Beverly replied smoothly and turned to Amy. "Happy birthday, Amy." She kissed her on the cheek. The scent of her perfume was strong and almost suffocating. "Thank you, Beverly," Amy replied politely. "Now, everyone," Beverly raised her voice to capture the attention of the entire room. "Let's all go outside to see my gift for Amy. Everyone come along." People followed her with curiosity and went out to the street in front of the apartment. There, a brand new red Mercedes-Benz S-Class was parked, gleaming in the sunlight. Amy gasped. It was undoubtedly a magnificent car. But at the same time, she couldn't help feeling the intention of showing off and control behind Beverly's gift. "Do you like it?" Beverly asked in a sweet voice. "It's the latest model. I had it specially ordered." As the people around them expressed their admiration, she handed Amy the keys. "You should be grateful," she said with a smile, though the words carried the tone of a command. "It's wonderful." "Thank you," Amy responded as expected by those around her. While complex emotions swirled inside, she maintained the smile she had cultivated as a professional designer. Richard's face was beaming with surprise and joy. "This is really amazing. He embraced Beverly again. "Amy, what do you think? Isn't it wonderful?" Amy looked at the car, feeling a vague uneasiness. What was behind this lavish gift? "Yes, it's unbelievable," she answered honestly. Indeed, it was unbelievable that Beverly Wilson would give something without expecting anything in return. A week after the birthday party, Amy returned from shopping in her compact car and looked up at the gleaming red Mercedes-Benz parked next to her in the apartment parking lot. That car, which she had never driven, continued to shine like a red warning light at the corner of her vision. Carrying heavy shopping bags in both hands, Amy headed toward the elevator and thought. Richard had already asked several times about why she wasn't using his mother's gift. Each time, she had made excuses like, "My current car is fine," or, "It takes time to get used to it." She couldn't tell him the real reason. She didn't believe this gift came from genuine goodwill. Back in the apartment, there was a message from Richard on the answering machine. "I'll be late tonight. I have a dinner with clients. Don't worry. Love you." Amy put down her shopping bags and looked down at the red Mercedes through the window. She thought this was her chance. "I have time to check out that car." Determined, Amy went back down to the parking lot. She took out the keys and approached the car. After making sure there were no eagle-eyed surveillance cameras, she didn't think Beverly would go that far, but just to be safe, she opened the driver's door. Sitting inside, the smell of luxury leather hit her nose. Everything looked perfect: the shine of the dashboard, the texture of the seats, the sophisticated design of the control panel. But when she inserted the key into the ignition and started the engine, she felt something was off. The engine sound seemed slightly irregular. A faint vibration traveled through the steering wheel to her hands. Amy, with no experience of luxury cars, couldn't judge whether this was normal. "It might just be my imagination," she thought. "I'm not a Mercedes expert after all." As she explored the dashboard menu, various functions caught her eye. When she tried to check the navigation system and opened the settings screen, she found that a user profile had already been set up: Beverly Wilson. "Of course," Amy muttered. "A new car, yet she's already entered her own information." Driven by curiosity, Amy examined the navigation history. It contained addresses for Beverly's home, Amy and Richard's apartment, and several luxury shopping malls. Investigating further, she discovered a vehicle tracking option in the system settings. It was enabled. "What's this?" Amy's brows furrowed. Reading the explanation, she learned that this feature sent the car's location information in real time to a specific smartphone application. The linked account name was B.Wilson. Uneasiness began to spread. Amy explored the settings further and found a recording function option. This too was enabled, set to automatically record conversations inside the car and send them to the same account. "Oh my God," Amy breathed. This was no longer a mere coincidence. Beverly had intended to monitor her and Richard. With trembling hands, Amy opened the glove compartment and took out the car's manual. Flipping through the hundreds of pages, she searched for information about the normal condition of the engine. It stated, "The S-Class engine is especially known for its quietness, with almost no vibration felt at idle." The vibration she had felt was clearly abnormal. Amy listened carefully to the engine again. Indeed, a slight irregular sound could be heard. To investigate further, Amy took out her smartphone and searched for Mercedes-Benz S-Class engine abnormality. Reading several forums, she learned that engine troubles could lead to serious problems. Next, she checked the vehicle information screen on the dashboard to verify the car's history. What she discovered was shocking. This car wasn't new. The sale date was 6 months ago. "This can't be," Amy said aloud. Beverly had claimed it was the latest model, and that she had specially ordered it. To investigate further, Amy noted down the car's VIN and accessed an automobile history report service on her smartphone. After paying the fee with her credit card and downloading the report, the terrible truth was revealed. The car was actually used and had an accident history. The previous owner had an accident on the highway, causing serious damage to the front end. It had been repaired, but crucial parts of the engine hadn't been completely restored. The report warned, potential for serious problems during long-distance or high-speed driving. Amy's hands trembled. This wasn't just a generous gift. Beverly had given her a dangerous car and intended to monitor her movements. In the worst case, this car could involve Amy in a serious accident. She turned off the engine and got out of the car. As the cool night air caressed her face, Amy thought about how to tell Richard about this horrifying discovery. He deeply loved his mother. Would he believe such a conspiracy? Back in the apartment, Amy decided to start gathering evidence. She took photos, printed the report, and captured screenshots of the recording function and tracking system settings. She would need irrefutable evidence to show Richard the truth. That night, lying in bed, Amy stared at the ceiling. Now that she knew the true purpose of Beverly's gift, she had to act to protect herself and her husband. But she still needed to proceed cautiously. She had to find a way to escape this dangerous situation without hurting Richard's feelings. On a weekend morning, Richard stood by the window with a coffee in hand, looking down at the parking lot. His eyes fell on the red Mercedes-Benz bathed in the morning sunlight. He took a slow sip of coffee, deep in thought. It's strange, he turned to Amy, who was sitting on the sofa. It's been 2 weeks since we received that car, and you haven't driven it once. Amy looked up from her laptop screen and chose her words carefully. Yes, I still need time to get used to it. Mom has been calling almost every day. Richard sat down on the sofa next to Amy. Asking, does Amy like the car? Is there any problem? She seems concerned. Amy took a deep breath. For the past few days, she had been calculating the timing to tell Richard the truth. The evidence she had gathered was irrefutable: the car's accident history, the engine problems, and most terrifyingly, the surveillance system installed in the car. But considering Richard's relationship with his mother, bringing up this issue was difficult. Beverly probably thinks I'm happy with the car, Amy said cautiously. But you're not, are you? Richard looked straight into Amy's eyes. There's something you're not telling me. Lately, you've seemed uneasy, and even more tense when it comes to my mother. Amy clenched her jaw. Richard, there's a problem with that car. A problem? What kind of problem? It's easier to show you than explain. Amy stood up. Let's go to the car. They descended to the parking lot in silence. Amy's heart was pounding. She understood that what was about to happen might change Richard's life forever. Standing in front of the red Mercedes in the parking lot, Amy took out the keys. Get in and see for yourself, she said. Richard, with a skeptical expression, opened the driver's door. What exactly am I looking for? Start the engine first, Amy said as she sat in the passenger seat. Richard inserted the key into the ignition and started the engine. He wasn't a driving expert, but he had opportunities to ride in luxury cars for work and knew the normal condition of a Mercedes-Benz S-Class. His expression began to cloud. The sound is strange, he said. I can feel vibrations too. Yes, that's not the sound of a new car, Amy said. Especially for a luxury car. Richard placed his hand on the steering wheel, frowning as he felt the subtle vibrations of the engine. It's definitely off. But Mom said it was new. Let's start with that. Amy took out her smartphone and opened the vehicle history report she had saved. Look at this. Richard took the smartphone and stared at the screen. Amy could see the color draining from his face. This is. His voice trembled. This car has an accident history. And it says it was sold 6 months ago. Yes, it's not a new car, but a used one that's been repaired after an accident, Amy said quietly. Important parts of the engine weren't properly repaired. It's dangerous for long-distance driving. Richard looked at Amy with disbelief. How could this happen? That's not all. Amy reached for the dashboard screen and opened the navigation system settings. Look at this. The settings screen displayed Beverly Wilson profile with vehicle tracking and voice recording enabled. Richard's expression froze. This is. He stumbled over his words. This is a surveillance device. Yes, all conversations in this car are set to be recorded and sent to Beverly's account, Amy said. And the car's location information is constantly being sent to her smartphone. Richard's hands fell from the steering wheel onto his knees. He stared out the window, seemingly trying to organize his thoughts. Why would Mom? He was at a loss for words. Amy took her husband's hand. Richard, I don't want to accuse Beverly. But this is clearly intentional. Giving an accident car disguised as new, and monitoring our movements and conversations. Anger began to color Richard's face. This is unacceptable. It's clear that Mom lied. But I can't believe it. Why would Mom do something like this? I don't know that either, Amy answered honestly. But this car isn't safe, and our privacy is being violated. I think we should have it examined by a professional. Richard turned off the engine and sighed deeply. Let's take it to an independent repair shop immediately. Without telling Mom anything. As they were leaving the car and heading back to the apartment, Richard suddenly stopped. How long have you known about this? A few days, Amy replied. I was struggling with how to tell you. I didn't want to ruin your relationship with Beverly. Richard placed his hand on Amy's shoulder. You did the right thing. This is shocking, but I needed to know the truth. Determination shone in his eyes. If Mom really did this, I'll have to reconsider my relationship with her. While riding the elevator, Richard quietly said, since childhood, Mom has been deeply involved in my life. I thought she was overprotective at times, but I never expected her to go this far. He managed a bitter smile. Mom always had high standards for my marriage partner. But I chose you. And I'm still proud of that choice. Amy squeezed her husband's hand. We'll get through this together. Back in the apartment, Richard picked up the phone and contacted a reputable local auto repair shop. I'd like you to look at a car first thing tomorrow morning, would that be possible? He didn't explain the details, simply stating there were safety concerns. After hanging up, Richard gazed at Amy and smiled sadly. I'm thankful you didn't drive the car. If anything had happened. Amy nestled against her husband, resting her head on his arm. What are we going to do now? First, we need to get an accurate assessment of the car's condition, Richard said with determination. Then, a conversation with Mom. The evening light streamed through the window, bathing the room in a red glow. That red light reminded them of the dangerous gift parked in the lot below. The next morning, Amy and Richard woke up early and drove the red Mercedes to Morrison Auto Repair Shop. It was a reputable independent shop that Richard had called for an appointment. Both were quiet, anxious about what might happen. Upon arrival at the repair shop, an older gentleman with elegant gray hair greeted them. I'm Tom Morrison. The one you called, he said, extending his hand. Richard Wilson. And this is my wife, Amy, Richard responded nervously. We're concerned about this car. Morrison studied the red Mercedes with dignified eyes. What symptoms are you experiencing? The engine sound is odd, Amy explained. And we'd like to confirm if this is really a new car. Morrison raised an eyebrow but asked no further questions, getting straight to work. Let's start with a computer diagnosis. Then we'll take a closer look at the engine. Amy and Richard waited in the shop's office space. Coffee cup in hand, Richard stared out the window. I can't believe my mother would do something like this, he finally spoke. Especially something that would put your safety at risk. Amy placed her hand over his. We can't say anything for certain yet. Let's wait for Mr. Morrison's diagnosis. About an hour later, Morrison returned to the office. His expression was grim, and he held a detailed diagnostic report in his hand. I have something I need to tell you both, he said as he sat down. This car is not new. It's been at least 9 months since manufacture. Richard leaned forward. And the condition of the engine? Morrison sighed deeply. To be frank, it's dangerous. The engine mounts have been improperly repaired, and several critical components aren't original parts. With high-speed or extended use, the engine could completely fail. In the worst case, it could stop while driving, potentially causing a serious accident. A chill ran down Amy's spine. This was exactly what she had suspected. Morrison continued, I also found unusual electronic devices in the car. He produced another document. A surveillance device linked to the navigation system. It's quite sophisticated, not something an amateur would install. The color drained from Richard's face. So it was deliberately installed. Without a doubt, Morrison nodded. These kinds of devices aren't typically installed by used car dealerships. Someone must have specially ordered it. Amy saw Richard's expression harden. There was a complex mix of anger and sadness there. Thank you, Mr. Morrison, Richard said quietly. Could we have this in writing? The detailed diagnosis and its dangers. Morrison showed understanding. I also recommend leaving the car here until you decide what to do with it. It shouldn't be driven in this condition. After leaving the keys with Morrison and riding the elevator back, Richard suddenly punched the wall. Why? His voice trembled with anger and sadness. Why would Mom do something like this? Amy embraced her husband. She had no answers. She could only support his wounded heart. I need to see my mother, Richard said in a voice of firm resolve. Right now. That afternoon, Amy and Richard headed to Beverly's luxury apartment. In the car, Richard maintained silence, and Amy didn't disturb his thoughts. Upon arriving at Beverly's building, a doorman greeted them in the entrance hall. Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, welcome, he said cheerfully. Shall I announce you to Mrs. Wilson? No, it's a surprise, Richard forced a smile. Mother will be delighted to see us. They took the luxurious elevator to the top floor and stood in front of Beverly's penthouse door. Richard rang the doorbell, and soon Beverly herself opened the door. Richard. Amy. What a lovely surprise, she said, feigning delight. However, her eyes quickly noticed the stern expressions on their faces, and her smile faded. Is something wrong? Let's talk inside, Richard's voice was cold. Beverly anxiously led them to the living room. Shall I make some tea? No, thank you, Amy quietly replied. Once the three were seated on the sofa, Richard took out Morrison's diagnostic report. Mom, we need to talk about the car you gave Amy as a present. Beverly tensed momentarily but quickly composed herself. That wonderful car. Did Amy like it? You said it was new, Richard looked straight into her eyes. Of course, Beverly smiled. I specially ordered the latest model. Richard placed the diagnostic report in front of her. That's a lie, his voice trembled. It's not a new car, but a used one with accident history. The engine is in a dangerous condition and could cause a serious accident during long-distance driving. Beverly's expression froze for a moment. That can't be. I bought it from an authorized dealer. That's not all, Amy said quietly. Surveillance devices have been installed in the car, set to record all conversations and send them to your smartphone. Beverly's face changed color. That's ridiculous, she stood up. I just wanted to give a nice present. Richard also stood up, facing his mother. Enough, Mom. All the evidence is right here. He produced additional documents. These are the car's purchase records. You bought this car from a used car dealer and had surveillance devices installed after it was repaired. The color drained from Beverly's face. She collapsed back onto the sofa and remained silent for a while. Finally, she looked up. There was a coldness in her eyes that they had never seen before. You deserve a better woman, she said to Richard. This woman is manipulating you. Mom. Richard could no longer contain his anger. Amy is my wife. And you're the one who put her life in danger. That car is perfectly safe, Beverly argued. It might have some issues, but nothing fatal. Not fatal. Amy said in disbelief. Mr. Morrison said the engine could stop while driving at high speed. So what? Beverly's voice suddenly turned cold. I just wanted to eliminate her, making it look like an accident. A terrible silence fell over the room. Richard stared at his mother, trying to comprehend her words. You tried to kill me. Amy's voice was faint. Beverly shrugged. I didn't think that far. I just thought you might get scared and stop driving the car. Then it would become Richard's. She smiled at Richard. It was for you, son. Richard's face showed horror and disgust. This is the end, Mom, he said in a trembling voice. Our relationship ends here. Richard. Beverly hurriedly stood up. You're my only son. You'd abandon me for this woman. Amy is not this woman, Richard said quietly but firmly. She is my wife and my life partner. And now that you've tried to hurt her, I can no longer call you mother. Beverly's face contorted. You'll regret this, she threatened. She's not worthy of you. Goodbye, Mom, Richard took Amy's hand. Don't contact us. We'll talk through lawyers. As they headed for the door, Beverly threw out a final remark. I just wanted to protect you, Richard. But Richard didn't look back. As they got into the elevator and the doors closed, he let out a long sigh. It's over, he said in a tired voice. Amy rested her head on her husband's shoulder. Are you okay? No, not at all, Richard answered honestly. But things will get better from now on. He squeezed Amy's hand. Let's get through this together. As they left the building, a soft sunset embraced them. 1 year later, Amy and Richard were having breakfast in the backyard of their new suburban home. The gentle morning light illuminated the flowers in the garden, and the chirping of birds sounded pleasant. More coffee? Richard asked, pot in hand. Thank you, Amy smiled and held out her cup. Her rounded belly told of the new life growing within her. Their daughter was due to be born in 2 months. Richard gently placed his hand on his wife's belly, smiling at the faint movements he could feel. Full of energy. Yes, she moves around regardless of whether it's midnight or morning, Amy laughed. Just like you. Their lives had changed dramatically over the past year. After the confrontation with his mother, Richard began seeing a psychological counselor to address his relationship with his mother. Understanding the boundary between a mother's love and control wasn't easy, but therapy was helping him gradually overcome past suffering. They had moved into their new home 6 months ago. Leaving their Manhattan apartment for a spacious house with a garden marked a fresh start. Amy continued her design work from home while preparing for the baby's arrival. Richard worked at the same company but had begun to prioritize work-life balance. I'll finish painting the baby's room this afternoon, Richard said while taking a bite of toast. The combination of lilac and cream was a brilliant idea. As a designer, I pride myself on it, Amy winked. That room will be perfect. Their conversation was interrupted by the ringing of the phone. Richard looked at the screen and his expression tensed slightly. It's from Mom. Amy studied her husband's expression. His relationship with Beverly remained complicated. Since the incident, Richard had kept his distance but couldn't completely cut ties, maintaining just a monthly phone call. On the advice of professionals, he had decided to maintain limited contact. Richard answered the phone. After a brief conversation, he put it down. Mom says she wants to send something for the baby, he said with a complex expression. That's. Amy chose her words. Don't worry, Richard took his wife's hand. I won't let Mom manipulate us again. If she sends anything, I'll check it first. Amy nodded, reassured. Beverly seemed to have softened her attitude somewhat upon learning of her grandchild's existence. However, Amy still didn't fully trust her. I know you'll protect me and our child, she said quietly. Richard embraced his wife. We're a family. There will still be difficulties ahead, but we'll overcome them together. The morning sun rose higher, announcing the start of a new day. Though the shadows of the past hadn't completely disappeared, Amy and Richard continued to walk forward. And the new life soon to be born would bring them new hope and joy. Mornings in New York City are always bustling. In Elizabeth Collins' kitchen on the 12th floor of a Manhattan high-rise apartment, the sweet scent of vanilla wafted through the air. As the morning sunlight streamed through the window, Elizabeth carefully applied icing to cupcakes. Her hands were delicate, with the graceful precision of an artist's brush strokes. Elizabeth was a popular pastry chef with over 100,000 followers on Instagram and ran her own online cake shop, Elizabeth Sweets. Her colorful and artistic designer cakes were renowned even among celebrities, especially for special events like weddings and baby showers, with a waiting list of 6 months. Honey, you should start getting ready soon. Today's meeting starts at 10, said Michael, her husband, who appeared in the kitchen wearing a navy suit and adjusting his tie. Michael was an executive at a major IT company, a man with a gentle personality and intellectual air. He softly embraced Elizabeth from behind and kissed her cheek. I know. This is the last batch. They're samples for this weekend's bridal shower. Elizabeth smiled as she finished the pink rose-shaped icing on the last cupcake. Michael picked one up, calling it a taste test, and took a bite. Still brilliant. Your talent amazes me every day. Michael and Elizabeth met 5 years ago at his company's Christmas party, where she had catered the dessert buffet. Impressed, Michael had approached her, and they quickly grew close, marrying a year later. Now they lived in an upscale Manhattan neighborhood with their 2 cats, Oliver and Luna. By the way, I got a call from my mother today. My parents are coming to town next weekend, Michael said. Elizabeth's expression tensed momentarily. Her relationship with Michael's parents, Robert and Vivian, was far from ideal. Robert was a successful businessman who ran a real estate company based in Boston. Raised in a strict household, he took pride in his success and always had high expectations of his son, Michael. Vivian, a former high school teacher and now a housewife living an elegant lifestyle, doted on Michael and held very specific standards for a suitable wife for her son. They're coming again. They were just here last month, Elizabeth sighed deeply. The relationship with her in-laws had been complicated from the beginning. They had been skeptical of Elizabeth from the start, with Vivian particularly looking down on her, calling her the baker's daughter. They believed their son's partner should have been a doctor, lawyer, or someone from a prestigious family. Michael rubbed her shoulders and said, "Don't worry. I'll handle it properly this time." In contrast, Elizabeth's relationship with her own parents, Jonathan and Martha, was warm. Jonathan was the founder of Collins Bakery, a popular cake chain with over 50 locations across the United States. His passion and innovative business methods had been passed down to Elizabeth. Martha was a marketing consultant who had greatly contributed to her husband's business expansion. They supported Elizabeth's independence and were proud of her talent. They also warmly welcomed Michael, always inviting the couple to their home for holidays. Currently, the Collins couple had moved to California, living a semi-retired life while occasionally providing business advice or helping develop new recipes. I should get going. I might be late tonight, but I'll make sure to take Saturday off. Maybe we could see a movie. Michael glanced at his watch. Sounds lovely. I'm looking forward to it, Elizabeth smiled. After Michael left, Elizabeth began tidying up the kitchen. Looking at the calendar, she noticed her birthday was next Tuesday. Her parents had said they couldn't come to celebrate because they were traveling for business, but they seemed to be planning something special. Meanwhile, her in-laws' visit was scheduled for the same weekend, leaving Elizabeth with mixed feelings. Her phone rang, and the display showed Mom. Good morning, Elizabeth. I'm just trying a new recipe. About your birthday, I've prepared a special present. Look forward to it. Hearing Martha's warm voice lightened Elizabeth's mood. She was grateful for the bond with her parents, which contrasted sharply with the cold relationship with her in-laws. Elizabeth looked out the window. The Manhattan skyline gleamed in the morning light. In that moment, she was content with her life, a successful career, a loving husband, and a warm family back home. If only the relationship with her in-laws didn't cast a small shadow on her heart. Elizabeth's birthday began like any ordinary Tuesday. In the morning, Michael prepared a special breakfast and brought it to bed, along with a small gift box. Inside the box was an antique brooch Elizabeth had been wanting. It was a delicate gold flower-shaped brooch with a small ruby glistening in the center. Oh, it's beautiful. How did you find it? I noticed you'd saved it several times on your Pinterest board, Michael winked. I've made reservations for a special dinner tonight. Be ready by 7, and I'll pick you up. After Michael left for work, Elizabeth worked on designing a new cake. In the early afternoon, she realized she was short on some ingredients and went shopping at the neighborhood supermarket. It was an unusually warm spring day, and Elizabeth enjoyed the ambience of the city as she walked slowly. While selecting ingredients at the supermarket, her phone rang. It was from a delivery company she didn't recognize. Miss Collins, we tried to deliver a package to your home, but you weren't there. Would you like us to redeliver? Oh, I'm sorry. I'll be home soon. Could you wait about 30 minutes, if possible? Certainly. We'll wait for you. Elizabeth quickly finished her shopping and hurried home. A small delivery van was parked in front of her apartment. Miss Collins? We've been waiting for you. Please sign here. The delivery person handed her a large white box. The box had the Collins Bakery logo printed on it, and Elizabeth understood it was a birthday present from her parents. She accepted the package with a smile and said, "Thank you." As she tried to open her front door, Elizabeth noticed something strange. The door was opening from the inside, and Vivian Morrison's face appeared. Oh, Elizabeth. What perfect timing. Elizabeth couldn't hide her surprise. Vivian, why are you here? I wasn't expecting you. We had sudden business in Boston, so I called Michael. He gave me the key. Upon entering the living room, Elizabeth saw Robert Morrison sitting on the sofa, watching television. He greeted her curtly without turning around. Hello, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, though confused, responded politely. Robert, Vivian, I'm surprised by your sudden visit. Did Michael know about this? Of course. But he's busy, so he probably forgot to tell you, Vivian answered. Besides, since he married you, he hardly has time to see us anymore. Elizabeth swallowed her words and carried her packages to the kitchen. As she was about to put the cake box in the refrigerator, her phone rang. The display showed Mom. Happy birthday, Elizabeth. I sent you a special cake. Did it arrive? Martha's voice sounded excited. Thank you. I just received it. I'm looking forward to it. Dad and I made it with a special recipe. It's a peach Melba cake, the one you loved as a child. But we've made it a bit more sophisticated this time. Elizabeth smiled. Wonderful. I'll share it with Michael later. We have a special dinner tonight. That sounds lovely. Enjoy your evening. Dad says hello too. After ending the call, Elizabeth tried to put the cake box in the refrigerator but couldn't find it. She looked around the kitchen, but the box was nowhere to be seen. Vivian, did you see a white cake box? I just brought it in. Vivian entered the kitchen and casually responded, "Oh, that? I threw it away." Elizabeth couldn't believe her ears. What? What do you mean you threw it away? Well, there was no name on it, and when I opened it and saw it was a cake, I thought it was just some old sample or something. I put it in the trash, Vivian shrugged. Elizabeth quickly checked the trash can. The cake box had been crushed and discarded. When she opened the lid, the beautifully decorated cake was smashed, the cream and cake base ruined. This was a special birthday cake my parents made for me. Why would you throw it away? Elizabeth's voice trembled. Robert entered the kitchen and glanced at the situation. Oh, that was yours, he said mockingly. I thought a daughter-in-law's birthday was meaningless. Elizabeth was speechless with anger and sadness. Just then, the front door opened, and Michael came home. Elizabeth, I could leave early today. Oh, Mom, Dad. Why are you here? Vivian smiled at her son. We had a sudden trip to Boston. We decided to stop by your home. Michael noticed Elizabeth's expression and moved to her side. What's wrong? Did something happen? Elizabeth explained the situation, fighting back tears. Michael's expression hardened with anger. What's going on? Why did you throw away Elizabeth's cake? Vivian began making excuses. Well, I didn't know. Even if you didn't know, you have no right to throw away someone else's property. Michael's voice was cold. Please leave now. Stay at a hotel tonight. Robert stood up. Is that any way to talk to your parents? As long as you don't respect my wife, I can't respect you, Michael firmly declared. Please, just go for today. In the tense atmosphere, Robert and Vivian reluctantly began packing their things. That night, Elizabeth and Michael's birthday dinner was a subdued affair. At the restaurant, the chef personally visited their table to offer birthday wishes, but joy didn't reach Elizabeth's heart. The loss of her parents' special cake left a deep sadness in her chest. Michael took his wine glass and gently held his wife's hand. I'm truly sorry. My parents' behavior is inexcusable. Elizabeth sighed deeply. No matter what I do, they'll never accept me. I don't want to be involved with my parents anymore, Michael said resolutely. I should distance myself from anyone who hurts you, even if they're my parents. The next morning, as Elizabeth was preparing for work, Michael's phone began to ring. The display flashed, Mother. Michael ignored the call and poured his morning coffee. Aren't you going to answer it? Elizabeth asked. I don't want to talk right now, Michael replied briefly. However, the phone kept ringing, and eventually, calls started coming to Elizabeth's phone too. She gave Michael a perplexed look. Maybe you should answer. If we keep ignoring them, they might show up again. Michael reluctantly agreed and answered the phone on speaker. Why aren't you answering your phone? Vivian's voice was mixed with anger and anxiety. I don't want to talk right now. But how could you treat us like that? Throwing your parents out of your house, it's outrageous. Michael's face hardened. What's outrageous is you throwing away my wife's birthday cake and mocking her. That was a misunderstanding. We didn't know, so it couldn't be helped, Vivian continued making excuses. I'm disappointed there's no word of apology, Michael said calmly. I need some distance right now. The call abruptly ended, leaving a heavy silence in the room. Later that afternoon, while Elizabeth was making cakes in her workshop, she received a video call from her parents. She wiped her hands and faced the screen. Thank you. But the cake is. We know, Elizabeth, Martha said gently. We read your message. That was a terrible thing to happen. I was truly sad, Elizabeth answered honestly. Jonathan's deep voice resonated, don't worry. We're heading to New York tomorrow. We've moved up our business trip. Elizabeth was surprised. Really? But I thought you weren't coming until next week. Our daughter was hurt. We can't just ignore that. The next afternoon, Elizabeth's doorbell rang. When she opened it, Jonathan in a suit and Martha in an elegant dress were standing there. Elizabeth hugged her parents. Are you okay? Martha asked, peering into her daughter's face. The three sat in the living room, and Elizabeth explained the situation in detail. Jonathan's expression grew increasingly stern as the story progressed. That's unacceptable, he said in a low voice. To treat a cake we made with so much love like that. And to treat you that way, Martha added. How did Michael react? He strongly protested and made them leave, Elizabeth answered. And yesterday when they called, he remained firm. Jonathan stood up quietly and gazed out the window. Actually, I have another connection with the Morrisons. Elizabeth and Martha looked at him in surprise. Last month, Robert approached me about financing a major real estate project. He's trying to develop a large commercial facility in Boston, but the bank's loan conditions are strict, and he was considering having me as a guarantor. I had no idea, Elizabeth couldn't hide her surprise. It was a business matter. But after this incident, my decision has changed, Jonathan took out his phone. I can't do business with someone who doesn't respect my daughter. He called Robert and put it on speaker. Jonathan. I didn't expect to hear from you so soon, Robert's voice sounded relaxed. Robert, regarding the loan guarantee, I'm afraid I'll have to decline. Silence fell on the other end of the phone. What do you mean? You were positive about it last week. I heard what happened from my daughter. You threw away her birthday cake and insulted her. That was just a misunderstanding. Vivian didn't know. It's not about misunderstanding, it's about respect, Jonathan's voice was cold. I can't proceed with a $200 million project with someone who can't respect his daughter or daughter-in-law. Jonathan, you can't be serious. Are you mixing a small family issue with business? Robert's voice grew anxious. For me, family is paramount. If you don't understand that, our values don't align. After the call ended, silence filled the room for a while. Martha placed her hand on Elizabeth's shoulder and whispered, "Be strong." That evening, when Michael returned home, Elizabeth was chatting with the Collins couple in the living room. He was surprised to see his in-laws but quickly exchanged warm greetings. We heard about the situation and decided to come immediately, Jonathan explained. Michael sat on the sofa and sighed deeply. My father called me 6 times today. I didn't answer. I contacted him too, Jonathan said. I was planning to be involved in his project's financing, but I cancelled that. Michael showed a surprised expression. Father's waterfront project. That's a big blow for him. Just then, the doorbell rang. Everyone exchanged glances. When the door opened, Robert and Vivian were standing there. Robert, unlike his usual dignified self, had a tense face, and Vivian's eyes were red. Robert awkwardly said, "We need to talk." "What do you want?" Michael asked coldly. Our behavior was inappropriate. Robert chose his words carefully. Elizabeth, we've come to apologize. Elizabeth opened the door and invited them into the living room. Robert and Vivian were visibly shaken to see the Collins couple. Robert spoke up, I didn't know you were here. We came immediately when we heard about our daughter's distress, Jonathan replied calmly. Elizabeth, Vivian stepped forward. I'm truly sorry for throwing away your cake. Even though I didn't know, disposing of it was my mistake. Elizabeth silently stared at her. And, Robert continued, my comments were inappropriate. I apologize. However, those words still lacked sincere regret and seemed like a mere formality. Robert's eyes kept darting toward Jonathan, revealing his true concern. Michael stood before his parents and quietly said, I accept your apology. But I still need time. Vivian started to say something, but Robert grabbed her arm and silently shook his head. I understand, Robert reluctantly agreed. Jonathan, could we discuss this in more detail at your office tomorrow? My decision won't change, Jonathan replied firmly. After the Morrison couple left, the atmosphere in the living room transformed. Elizabeth sighed with relief and sat beside Michael. That wasn't a genuine apology, she said quietly. They still don't truly understand what they did, Martha responded. But it's a start. Jonathan took a glass of whiskey and quietly said. Sometimes people only realize the value of precious things when they're about to lose them. 2 weeks passed. While Elizabeth was working on a new wedding cake design, she received a message from Michael. I got a call from my father. The situation seems quite serious. Elizabeth frowned as she replied, What do you mean? After Jonathan withdrew as guarantor, the bank tightened their loan conditions. And this morning, a major investor decided to withdraw too. Elizabeth felt conflicted. While her in-laws' actions were unforgivable, she felt a small sympathy knowing they were facing a business crisis. That night, Michael returned home with a dejected expression. My father came to my office today, he said, sinking deep into the sofa. He was more distraught than I've ever seen him. What happened? Elizabeth sat next to her husband and placed a hand on his shoulder. The waterfront project has completely collapsed. All the key investors withdrew, and the bank pulled their financing. Years of planning gone to waste. And what did he want from you? Michael sighed deeply. He asked for financial help. Wanted to know if my savings could cover the gap. Elizabeth was surprised. You didn't. I refused, Michael said decisively. Father needs to accept the consequences of his actions. Besides, our savings are for your new cake shop in Manhattan. As they were talking, the doorbell rang. When Michael opened it, Vivian was standing alone. Her usually perfectly styled hair was disheveled, and her eyes were swollen from crying. Her voice trembled, Could we talk? They invited Vivian into the living room. She sat down and, with shaking hands, took a small box from her bag. This is for you. Inside the box was a delicate silver bracelet. It's been passed down from my mother. I wanted to give it to you as a token of my apology. What's going on? Elizabeth asked quietly. Everything is falling apart, Vivian said, crying. Robert's project has completely failed, and we're facing enormous debt. The bank says they'll put a lien on our house. She covered her face with her hands. I want to sincerely apologize for our mistakes. For throwing away your cake, for not respecting you. I'm truly sorry. Elizabeth sensed truth in Vivian's words. However, Michael still maintained a skeptical expression. Mom, where's Dad? Why didn't he come with you? He's still letting his pride get in the way, Vivian sighed. I've reached my limit. I've realized that family bonds are more important than anything. But Robert. Just then, Michael's phone rang. The display showed Jonathan. "Michael, are you and Elizabeth there?" Jonathan's voice echoed. "Yes, we are. Actually, Vivian is here too." "That's good. I have something important to tell you. Tomorrow, Martha and I are hosting an opening party for the new Collins Bakery. We've invited many influential people from New York. Of course, we'd like you to come." "I understand," Michael answered. "And one more thing, are Robert and Vivian invited too?" On the other end of the phone, Jonathan seemed to consider for a moment. "Of course, we've sent invitations to them as Boston business owners. Though I don't know if they'll come." After ending the call, Michael explained the situation to Vivian. She showed a complex expression but nodded. "I'll go. And I'll bring Robert too." The next evening, the newly opening Collins Bakery was elegantly decorated and bustling with many guests. Elizabeth and Michael stood next to Jonathan and Martha, greeting the arriving guests. About 30 minutes after the party started, Robert and Vivian appeared at the entrance. Robert couldn't hide his tired expression, and Vivian was firmly holding his arm. They slowly approached Jonathan and the others. "Thank you for the invitation," Robert said stiffly. "Glad you could make it," Jonathan extended his hand. In the tense atmosphere, Martha gently tapped her glass and began a speech. The venue fell silent. "Thank you all for coming today. We're celebrating not only the opening of the new Collins Bakery but also acknowledging our daughter Elizabeth's achievements." Martha smiled at Elizabeth. "Her online shop's partnership with our business will open a new era." Amidst the applause, Martha continued, "But today, I have one more thing to share, about the importance of family bonds." The venue quieted again, and Martha began speaking softly. "Recently, on my daughter's birthday, a cake we made with love was thrown away by her in-laws. She was told, a daughter-in-law's birthday is meaningless." Murmurs arose from the audience. The blood drained from Robert's face, and Vivian lowered her head. "However, I'm not speaking here to condemn, but to advocate for the importance of reconciliation and respect. No business success can replace family happiness." When the speech ended, a heavy silence fell over the venue. Many eyes turned to Robert and Vivian. Their reputation in Boston's social circles was wavering significantly at this moment. Later in the party, Robert was standing alone on the terrace. As Elizabeth approached him, he turned around. "Elizabeth." His voice had lost its usual dignity. "I'm truly sorry." There stood a sincere Robert she had never seen before. Pride and arrogance gone, just an aging man standing there. "I've taken pride only in my success for a long time. And I thought that was the only measure of value. That's why I looked down on you, a pastry chef." He sighed deeply. "But now, about to lose everything, I've started thinking about what truly matters. Michael's happiness, and your presence." Elizabeth said quietly, "I accept your apology. But it will take time to repair our relationship." "I understand that," Robert nodded. "I'm grateful just for the chance to start over." Late that night, when Elizabeth and Michael returned home, Michael embraced his wife. "Are you okay?" "Yes," Elizabeth smiled. "Today was an important day. I feel like it's a new beginning." Michael kissed her cheek. "I never thought my father would really change. But today, he was different." "People can change," Elizabeth said, looking out the window. "Especially when they're about to lose something precious." That night, Elizabeth fell asleep with a peaceful feeling she hadn't experienced in a long time. A year later, on a spring Sunday, Elizabeth's kitchen was busier than ever. "You should make the dough a little softer," Vivian said as she carefully kneaded vanilla dough next to Elizabeth. Her clothes were dusted with flour, and her hair was casually tied back, an unimaginable sight from the perfectionist Vivian of the past. Yes, but be careful not to overwork it, Elizabeth smiled as she advised. From the living room, the voices of Michael and Robert discussing a baseball game could be heard. Their relationship too was slowly but surely being repaired. Elizabeth placed a hand on her rounded belly. 5 months pregnant, she and Michael were expecting their first child in the fall. When they found out it was a girl, Vivian was unexpectedly overjoyed and immediately began knitting adorable baby clothes. "How does it feel?" Vivian asked softly. Genuine interest shone in her eyes. "I'm happy." A little scared, but very excited, Elizabeth answered honestly. "You'll be a wonderful mother," Vivian said quietly. "Much better than I was." Feeling her voice slightly waver, Elizabeth placed her hand over Vivian's. "And you'll surely be a good grandmother." Tears glistened in Vivian's eyes. "Thank you, Elizabeth, for giving me this chance." Since that incident, many things had changed. Robert's real estate company had been significantly downsized, and he had to let go of half his business. However, this brought him humility, and now he focused on smaller projects, developing a healthier business. The biggest change was in his values. Robert, who once pursued only success and wealth, now cherished time with his family. Particularly, his eagerness for the birth of his first grandchild was a change that surprised everyone. Meanwhile, Elizabeth's career was progressing well. Her online cake shop had officially partnered with her parents' Collins Bakery and was now known throughout New York. Currently, she had reduced her workload in preparation for childbirth but was already thinking about new projects for after the baby's arrival. "Is the cake ready?" Martha entered the kitchen. She and Jonathan had also come from Boston for today's family gathering. "It'll be out of the oven in about 10 minutes, Elizabeth replied. Today was her birthday. In contrast to last year's bitter memories, this year the entire family had gathered to celebrate. The cake was taken out of the oven, and everyone began decorating it. While Martha and Elizabeth prepared colorful icings, Vivian was creating flower patterns with surprising skill. "Beautiful technique," Martha complimented Vivian. "You used to do ikebana, right?" "Yes, I was passionate about it when I was younger," Vivian replied happily. A friendship was slowly beginning to blossom between them two. With the cake completed, everyone gathered at the dining table. Jonathan opened champagne and poured it into glasses. "Happy birthday, Elizabeth," Robert said quietly. "And thank you for accepting us this past year." Elizabeth smiled, looking around the table. It was a scene she couldn't have imagined a year ago. "We've overcome it together," she replied. Michael put his arm around Elizabeth's shoulder and kissed her cheek. "Your strength and kindness made this possible." In the soft light of the candles, Elizabeth took a deep breath, made a wish, and blew out the candles. Her wish had already come true, she had found a true family bond. Melissa Brown squinted at the morning sun streaming through the window as she got out of bed. From her high-rise apartment in Atlanta, she could hear the distant bustle of the city. Her life was remarkably well-ordered. With more than 10 years of experience as an accountant, her work was highly regarded by both colleagues and supervisors. She had finally decided to live for herself. "Mother again," Melissa muttered while looking at her smartphone screen. It showed 3 missed calls from Martha at 7 a.m. "Must be about Vanessa," she thought. Melissa's sister, Vanessa, looked similar to her but had a completely opposite personality. Vanessa called herself an entrepreneur and was constantly chasing new business ideas, though none of them lasted long. An organic candle shop, handmade jewelry brand, yoga studio, all had failed within months. Yet she would immediately jump to the next idea, declaring, "This is my true calling." Melissa sighed deeply as she made coffee. Their parents, especially their mother Martha, had always spoiled Vanessa excessively. "She's just following her dreams," her mother would often say. She's talented. She just hasn't found her place yet. But to Melissa, it all looked like simple irresponsibility. Their parents, Martha and Thomas, were both retired high school teachers. Martha was energetic and deeply involved in local volunteer work, while Thomas had a gentle personality and enjoyed gardening and reading. They were wonderful as educators, but as parents, at least for Melissa, they left much to be desired. From an early age, Melissa had been cast in the role of the responsible older sister. During high school, while Vanessa was partying with friends, Melissa studied diligently and earned scholarships. In college, while Vanessa was finding herself on various journeys, Melissa worked part-time jobs to pay for her education. And now as a working adult, while Vanessa jumped from one failing business to another, Melissa was steadily building her career. Enough is enough, Melissa had decided last month. When her parents asked her once again to financially support Vanessa's newest venture, she refused for the first time. I have my own life too, Melissa told them. I want to buy my own condo. I'm planning to take out a loan for it. Her parents looked surprised but didn't particularly object. However, last week, Melissa was informed that her loan application had been rejected. There seems to be an issue with your credit history, the banker said. You already have significant debt under your name. That's impossible, Melissa protested. I shouldn't have any debt. I always pay my credit cards in full. The banker looked confused and said hesitantly, we have records here. Melissa immediately requested a credit report. That evening, when Melissa visited her parents' home, she sensed something was wrong. Her parents, especially her mother Martha, seemed restless and avoided eye contact. Mom, do you know something? Melissa asked. The bank says I have debt under my name, but I don't remember anything like that. Martha suddenly stood up, looking busy. Well, banks make mistakes all the time. Would you like some tea? Answer my question, Melissa persisted. Are you hiding something? Martha lowered her voice. You shouldn't pry too much into family matters. Sometimes it's better not to know certain things. Melissa felt a chill run down her spine. Something was definitely wrong. Something deep inside was warning her. Tuesday morning, Melissa woke up earlier than usual. The puzzling conversation with her parents last night wouldn't leave her mind. While brewing coffee in the kitchen, she had decided to visit the bank personally to investigate her credit report. She had just put on her suit and neatly arranged her hair when her smartphone began to ring. It was an unknown number. Normally she would ignore it, but considering the recent events, it might be important. Melissa took a deep breath before answering. This is Joseph Morris from the loan department at First Atlanta Bank, a male voice said in a calm but formal tone. The security deposit for the Brown Family Cafe business loan is in default. You're Melissa Brown, the guarantor, correct? Melissa caught her breath. Excuse me. Brown Family Cafe. I know nothing about such a business. And me being a guarantor. According to our records, you are the main guarantor for an $85,000 business loan under Vanessa Brown's name. The banker's voice started showing slight confusion. Melissa collapsed into a kitchen chair. Her mind couldn't process this. My sister's name is indeed Vanessa Brown, but I have no recollection of becoming a guarantor for her business. There must be some mistake. Ms. Brown, your signature and social security number are on the documents. The loan was approved last October. This is fraud, Melissa's voice trembled. I never signed such documents. That's troubling, the banker replied, choosing his words carefully. In any case, payments for the past 3 months are overdue. As the guarantor, you are obligated to make the payments. I'll send you the details by email. Please contact us if you have any questions. After the call ended, Melissa couldn't move for a while. Various thoughts swirled in her mind. Did her sister use her name to borrow money? Did her parents know? Is that why they reacted that way yesterday? After calling her company to take a day off, Melissa headed to her parents' house. While driving, a mixture of anger and anxiety welled up inside her. Thinking about all the sacrifices she had made for her family over the years, she almost burst into tears. Why is this happening to me? She gripped the steering wheel tightly. Upon arriving at her parents' house, she noticed Vanessa's colorful bohemian-style compact car in the parking lot. Melissa took a deep breath to calm her emotions and opened the front door. She could hear laughter coming from the living room. Entering the living room, she saw Vanessa sitting on the sofa, laughing at something on her latest smartphone. On the table in front of her was a coffee in a stylish cup. Her parents were nowhere to be seen. "Vanessa," Melissa called out, trying to maintain her composure. Her sister looked up, showing a momentary surprise before quickly returning to her usual bright smile. "Melissa, what brings you here at this hour? What about work?" Melissa sat in the chair opposite Vanessa, choosing her words carefully. "What is the Brown Family Cafe? I got a call from the bank this morning." Vanessa froze for a moment and put down her smartphone. A brief flash of anxiety crossed her eyes, but she quickly returned to a relaxed expression. "Oh, that's my new business. I opened a lovely cafe. It's on the east side. Haven't you been there yet? More importantly, why am I listed as a guarantor?" "I don't remember agreeing to that," Melissa continued, controlling her emotions. Vanessa slowly sipped her coffee and smiled with an eerily calm demeanor. "What? You didn't know? You're my guarantor. I have all the paperwork." Melissa was speechless. In that moment, it became clear that her sister had betrayed her. "This is criminal. Did you forge my signature? Why are you making such a fuss?" Martha entered from the kitchen. Her voice carried a tone of accusation. "Family should support each other. Vanessa has finally found her path. Do you want to destroy your sister's dream?" Melissa understood instantly. Her parents were accomplices. "I'm not against supporting Vanessa. But making such a significant decision as becoming a guarantor without even consulting me, this is fraud." "You're being dramatic," Thomas joined the conversation. He was holding several papers in his hand. "The documents have your signature. It's all legal." "Let me see," Melissa reached out. Her father reluctantly handed over the documents. Melissa flipped through the pages and indeed found her name on the last page. However, upon closer inspection, it was clearly forged. Her signature had distinctive characteristics, and this was merely an imitation. "This is a forgery," Melissa's voice shook. "I'll have to take legal action." "You can't be serious." Vanessa suddenly stood up and shouted. "You're going to sue your own family?" "Reconsider," Martha pleaded. "This is just a family matter. There's no need to involve outsiders." Melissa quietly stood up. Something inside her felt broken. The trust she had in her family, especially the respect she had for her parents, was shattered in an instant. "I won't be sacrificed anymore," she said slowly. Looking at the disturbed expressions of the three family members, Melissa headed toward the front door. "Wait!" Vanessa's voice called from behind. "Let's calm down and talk about this." But Melissa didn't look back. She left the house with determination, despite her family's calls. Her heart was wounded, but she also felt a strange sense of liberation. She thought she might finally be free from the sense of family responsibility she had carried for years. After leaving her parents' house, Melissa cried in her car. The mix of lifelong loyalty to her family and the pain of this betrayal was tearing her heart apart. But after a few minutes, she hid her eyes behind sunglasses and took out her smartphone. Instinctively, she knew what she needed to do. The next morning, Melissa stood in front of a law firm recommended by a colleague. The sophisticated Morris and Associates sign gleamed in the morning sun. Inside, she met Jennifer Morris, a middle-aged female attorney. Melissa felt reassured by her sharp eyes and composed demeanor. "This is clearly fraud," Jennifer stated after hearing Melissa's situation. "Your signature was forged, and your social security number was used without permission. This constitutes identity theft." "But, they're my family," Melissa said weakly. Jennifer smiled kindly. "Unfortunately, fraud and identity theft by family members are not uncommon, especially when money is involved. First, let's gather information about all accounts and loans created in your name from the bank. Then we'll consider your options." That afternoon, Melissa was meeting with the bank's branch manager. "I need details of all accounts and loans opened in my name. I am a victim of fraud," she said with a trembling voice but a resolute attitude. The bank's investigation took several days. During this time, Melissa continued to ignore numerous calls from her parents. Vanessa sent her a message, "Melissa, please. Let's talk. This is a misunderstanding." But the information from the bank revealed it was no misunderstanding. Over the past 2 years, Vanessa had taken out multiple loans using Melissa's name. Besides the cafe business loan, there were loans for a luxury car and several credit cards. The total amount exceeded $150,000. "This is worse than I imagined," Jennifer said while reviewing the files. "These debts are already recorded in your credit history. We need to file a police report immediately and formally report this as fraud." After leaving the lawyer's office, Melissa took out her smartphone with trembling hands. It was time to confront Vanessa directly. She dialed her sister's number. "Melissa. You finally called," Vanessa's voice had a hint of relief. "Listen, I'm sorry about the other day. I shouldn't have said those things." "Vanessa," Melissa tried to maintain her composure. "I know everything now. I investigated at the bank. All the loans and credit cards you took out in my name." There was a moment of silence on the other end. "Let me explain," Vanessa's voice suddenly became small. "I was just temporarily in trouble. I was planning to repay it all soon." "Really? Why didn't you talk to me?" Melissa's voice shook with emotion. "Even if I couldn't lend you money, I at least wouldn't have let you use my name without permission. Of course you would have refused." Vanessa suddenly raised her voice. "You're always so perfect, always looking down on me. I just wanted to make my business successful too. I needed that chance." "Still, using someone else's name is a crime," Melissa said firmly. "I've consulted with a lawyer. I'm planning to file a police report." "What?" Vanessa's voice changed. It started with surprise but gradually turned into cold anger. "If you talk to the bank, I'll go bankrupt. Is that what you want? To ruin your own sister?" "I'm not trying to ruin you," Melissa said in a tired voice. "Your own actions have ruined you." "I won't forgive you," Vanessa said in a low voice. "Betraying your family like this. Mom and Dad will have heart attacks when they hear about this." The call suddenly ended. Melissa tried calling back several times, but Vanessa didn't answer. The next day, as Melissa was about to head to the police station, she received an urgent call from her mother. Martha's voice was distraught. "Vanessa has disappeared. I haven't been able to reach her since last night. When I looked in her room, all her clothes and important belongings were gone." "What happened?" Melissa told her about yesterday's conversation with Vanessa. Martha started crying on the other end of the phone. "Are you really going to the police? Do you intend to put your sister in jail?" Melissa took a deep breath. "This is what Vanessa chose for herself. She used my name to borrow a large sum of money. She should face the consequences. But Martha's voice changed. It wasn't the accusatory or manipulative tone from before, but one filled with genuine sadness and regret. We were wrong too. I'm sorry we couldn't protect you. We spoiled Vanessa too much. Melissa was surprised by these words. Her parents had rarely taken her side before. Please. Come to the house, Martha pleaded. Your father, he's remorseful too. We need to find Vanessa. She might be in danger. Melissa postponed her visit to the police and headed to her parents' house. What she saw there was parents who looked completely different from before. Martha's eyes were red and swollen from crying, and Thomas looked old and frail. We were wrong, Thomas said, looking at his daughter. We spoiled Vanessa too much. And to you, we were unfair to you. We searched Vanessa's room last night for any clues, Martha said. We found this. She placed a photo on the table. It showed Vanessa with an unknown man wearing an expensive suit. His name is Raymond Collins, Thomas explained. Apparently Vanessa's business partner. We've never met him before. But his name and phone number were written on the back of the photo. Melissa picked up the photo. Something seems off, she said. There's not just this cafe business loan, but many other loans. Where did all that money go? Does the cafe actually exist? We don't know, Martha shook her head. The address is on the documents, but we've never gone to see it. We need to investigate ourselves before going to the police, Melissa made up her mind. I'm thinking of hiring a private investigator. We need to look into this Raymond Collins and find out if this cafe really exists. Her parents agreed. Thomas offered to use his savings to cover the investigation costs. This is partly our responsibility too. We'll do everything we can to fix what happened to you. A few days later, the investigator Melissa hired reported back. The Brown family cafe did exist but had already closed down. It had gone bankrupt after just 3 months of operation. And shockingly, it was discovered that Raymond Collins had a criminal record. He had previously been convicted of fraud and embezzlement. Further investigation revealed that Vanessa and Raymond had fled together to Nevada using the funds borrowed in Melissa's name. They had been spotted near Las Vegas. She might have been deceived, Martha said. Manipulated by this Raymond character. No, Mom, Melissa said quietly. Vanessa is an accomplice too. She knew what she was doing. But now, she's with a dangerous person. We need to find her. That night, Melissa and her parents gathered at the kitchen table to examine the documents and understand the full extent of Vanessa's debts. The total amount was beyond their imagination. How will we ever repay this? Martha sighed. First, we need to find Vanessa, Melissa was determined. And make her take responsibility. This will be for her own good. Thomas took Melissa's hand. I'm proud of you, Melissa, he said. You're truly a strong person. If only we had realized this sooner. Melissa squeezed her father's hand back. The family bond was deeply wounded, but for the first time, they were standing on the same side, facing the problem together. A month had passed since Vanessa's disappearance. Melissa had filed a police report but, at her family's strong request, refrained from pressing criminal charges. Let's find Vanessa and talk to her first, her lawyer Jennifer also agreed. During this time, the process of repairing Melissa's credit history was steadily progressing, but the loan issues remained unresolved. One Thursday evening, as Melissa returned home after working overtime, she found her parents waiting in front of her apartment. Both of their faces showed evident excitement. We found her, Martha said in a small voice. We know where Vanessa is. Surprised, Melissa invited them into her apartment. How? Her credit card, Thomas explained. The investigator you hired tracked it. Vanessa used her card at a motel in Nevada 3 days ago. A place called Desert Rest Motel, on the outskirts of Las Vegas. Melissa sat down on the sofa. Is she alone? Is she with Raymond? Well. Martha looked worriedly at her husband. According to the investigator, there's no sign of Raymond. Vanessa seems to be acting alone. And according to the motel staff, she appeared to be distressed. Melissa sighed deeply. What should we do? Contact the police. Let's go ourselves, Thomas said with a determined expression. We should confront this as a family. We'll keep the police as a last resort. The next day, Melissa and her parents were on a plane to Las Vegas. On board, Melissa stared out the window, thinking she had never experienced such a significant confrontation in her life. She mentally simulated her conversation with Vanessa multiple times. Should she explode in anger or handle it calmly? She must be frightened, Martha said quietly from the adjacent seat. All alone. Without Raymond. That man probably intended to use her from the beginning, Melissa responded calmly. Once he got the money, he abandoned her. It's our responsibility, Thomas said with deep remorse. We raised her to be this kind of person. Always spoiling her, never saying no, this is the result. After arriving in Las Vegas, the three headed to the Desert Rest Motel in a rental car. With its faded sign, this motel was typical of the Las Vegas suburbs that had lost their former glory. Checking at the front desk, they confirmed that Vanessa was indeed staying there. Room 211. The manager gave them a suspicious look but accepted their explanation that they were family. Martha knocked on the door with trembling hands. There was no sound for a while, but eventually a weak voice was heard from inside. Who is it? Vanessa, it's me, Martha said gently. Dad and Melissa are here too. After a long silence, the door slowly opened. The Vanessa standing there looked like a different person from the glamorous sister they knew. Her hair was disheveled, her eyes sunken, and her complexion poor. The room was a mess, with several empty wine bottles scattered about. Well, look who's here, Vanessa smiled sarcastically. A family reunion. Isn't that nice? Melissa calmly said, let's talk. They entered the room, and Vanessa sat in a chair by the window. Where's Raymond? Thomas asked. Who knows, Vanessa shrugged. Probably in Mexico or somewhere, scamming another woman. That man took everything from me. My cards, my cash. All I have left is this last one, she pointed to a credit card in Melissa's name. Why did you do this? Melissa asked quietly but firmly. Vanessa stared out the window for a while. Why? Because it was easy. You were always perfect, had everything. A good job, a stable life. I had nothing. That's not true, Melissa said. Everything I have, I earned through my own efforts. You. I'm what? Vanessa said provocatively. Say it. Incompetent? Lazy? No, Melissa said calmly. You were spoiled. You were never taught to take responsibility. At these words, Martha let out a small sob. She's right, Vanessa, the mother said in a stern tone for the first time. We spoiled you too much. We gave in to you too much. As a result, you turned out like this. Vanessa looked surprised. Let's end this, Thomas joined in. We won't allow you to keep running from responsibility anymore. You need to take responsibility for using Melissa and committing fraud. For the first time, Vanessa truly looked defeated. Tears welled in her eyes, and her shoulders began to shake. What should I do? First, come home, Martha said. And tell the truth about everything. To the police, to the bank. The police? The color drained from Vanessa's face. Melissa, are you really going to press charges against me? Melissa took a deep breath. She had prepared herself for this moment. That depends on you, she said. I don't hate you. But I want you to learn that actions have consequences. I don't want to go to jail, Vanessa said in a trembling voice. I don't want you to go to jail either, Melissa said quietly. But I want you to make a plan to repay all the debt. And promise never to do something like this again. I can do that, Vanessa nodded slightly. I promise. I'll pay it all back, it will take time, but I will. And one more thing, Melissa continued. I want you to get counseling. You need help. 3 days later, the family returned to Atlanta. Vanessa agreed to temporarily live with her parents. On the advice of Melissa's lawyer Jennifer, they entered into a legally binding repayment contract before a notary public. Vanessa agreed to repay all debts over 5 years, with a monthly installment plan. Vanessa also promised to attend weekly counseling sessions. I have problems, she admitted in a small voice after signing the contract. But I want to change. I really do. Melissa successfully negotiated with the bank to transfer the debt to Vanessa's name. Her credit score was slowly beginning to recover. The fraud charges with the police were put on hold, conditional on Vanessa acknowledging all responsibility and adhering to the repayment plan. Are you sure about this? Jennifer asked Melissa one day. Even if she doesn't take full legal responsibility. What I want isn't justice, but resolution, Melissa answered. She's my sister. I can't hate her. But it will take time to rebuild trust. That night, Melissa fell asleep with a genuinely peaceful feeling for the first time in a long while. Her life had changed forever, but now it felt like a new beginning. The family's problems weren't completely resolved, but at least they had started moving in the right direction. A year later, on Christmas Eve, Melissa was baking cookies in the kitchen of her new condo. The fresh scent of pineapple and orange filled the room. A gentle smile graced her face. Outside the window, snow was slowly falling, painting the Atlanta streets white. The doorbell rang, and Melissa quickly took off her oven mitts and headed to the door. Her parents and Vanessa were standing there. Everyone was holding gifts and looking at her with bright smiles. Welcome, Melissa said. She hugged each one of them and invited them inside. Many things had changed over the past year. Melissa had been promoted and purchased a new condo. Her career was progressing smoothly, and she had discovered the joy of living for herself for the first time. Vanessa had changed dramatically. After going through a rigorous rehabilitation program, she was now attending a local culinary school. I wanted to acquire actual skills and knowledge, she had said. She worked part-time at a cafe for 20 hours a week while gradually repaying her debt to Melissa. Their parents had changed too. Martha had learned the importance of treating her daughters equally, and Thomas had developed realistic expectations for Vanessa. Family gatherings became less frequent, but in return, their conversations became deeper and more sincere. Lovely condo, Martha said, looking around the living room. It suits you, Melissa. Let's make a toast, Thomas suggested while opening a bottle of wine. To new beginnings. They gathered around the dinner table, and conversation flowed easily. Laughter filled the room. When it was time for dessert, Vanessa quietly stood up. Everyone, let me say something, she said. This year has been the most difficult time in my life. But at the same time, it's been the year I've grown the most. She looked at Melissa. Living honestly is easier than lying and running away. Thank you for teaching me that. Melissa smiled. I've learned too, she said. The importance of maintaining my boundaries. And that sometimes saying no is also a form of love. Martha joined in while wiping away tears. We've learned a lot too. The importance of loving fairly. Also, Thomas said, "Did you see the news? Raymond was arrested. Not in Nevada, but in Texas. He's going to receive a long sentence for another fraud case." Vanessa nodded quietly. "I wish I had never met him, but I think that experience is why I am who I am today." As the night wore on, they discussed past events frankly. The pain, the regrets, the hopes. The family wasn't completely healed, but they were definitely moving toward a stronger, healthier relationship. As they were leaving, Melissa hugged Vanessa at the door. "See you next week," she said. Alone, Melissa stood by the window, looking at the snowy landscape and thought, sometimes the deepest wounds come from those closest to us. But it's through these wounds that we first come to know our true strength and self-worth. And she smiled contentedly. She felt that her life was just beginning. The morning sunlight streamed through the window of Amy Wilson's high-rise apartment in San Francisco, gently illuminating her face. She had already completed half of her morning routine. Taking a sip of coffee, she organized the day's schedule in her mind. As an accountant for a major corporation, her days were always meticulously planned. "Mom, I can't get my tie right," Aiden's voice called from the bedroom. Amy smiled, set down her coffee cup, and headed to her son's room. 10-year-old Aiden stood in front of the mirror wearing his school uniform. His blue eyes and brown hair were the spitting image of his father Michael, who had died in an accident 5 years ago. The resemblance sometimes brought pain to her heart, but it was also a great comfort. "Come here," Amy said gently, kneeling in front of Aiden and taking his tie. "Watch carefully. It's important to learn how to do this." While her nimble fingers tied the tie, Aiden watched with a serious expression. He was quick to understand things and always curious. He seemed to have inherited Michael's intelligence and her practical nature. "Grandma said she'd call today," Aiden said. "She mentioned something special." Amy paused for a moment. The word "special" from her mother Carol often had hidden intentions. Since her husband's death, Carol had been obsessed with maintaining her position in society. Her showy and domineering personality always pushed Amy to blend more with high society. "I see, something like that," Amy replied lightly, finishing the tie. "There, perfect. Breakfast is ready. Let's eat quickly." On her way back to the kitchen, her smartphone rang. Her sister Vanessa's name appeared on the screen. Amy answered with a sigh. "Amy. Did you hear from Mom? Amazing news." Vanessa's voice was high with excitement. Vanessa had jumped from job to job and currently worked at a high-end boutique, but spent most of her salary on designer items and social events. Her spending habits were a source of tension within the family, but Amy loved her sister and tried to support her as much as possible. "I haven't heard yet. Mom said she'd call today." "Oh. You're always behind. Mom has booked a Caribbean cruise. For all of us." Amy raised her eyebrows in surprise. "A cruise? How?" Her mother pretended to live a wealthy lifestyle, but in reality, she lived on the pension left by Amy's late father and monthly support from her ex-husband Bill. A cruise should have been far beyond her budget. "You know Mom's friend Judith who works at the travel agency? She got us a special discount. It's a family discount, so you and Aiden have to come with us." Amy leaned against the kitchen counter. Adjusting her work schedule and taking Aiden out of school wouldn't be easy. But after Michael's death, her mother and sister had, at least on the surface, supported her. She felt indebted to them. "When is it?" "Next week. Sorry for the short notice, but we can't miss this opportunity, right?" Amy thought deeply. Recently, she had begun repairing her relationship with Michael's parents, Robert and Martha Wilson. After Michael's death, She had temporarily distanced herself due to grief and loss, but she now wanted to nurture the bond with the grandparents for Aiden's sake. "I'll think about it. I'll decide after I talk to Mom about the details." "You're always like that. Sometimes things don't have to go according to plan," Vanessa complained. After hanging up, Amy shook her head. Her sister was always impulsive, with no planning skills. In contrast, Amy was cautious, always thinking carefully, especially about matters concerning her son's future. Aiden came into the kitchen and grabbed a cereal bowl. "Mom, was that Grandma calling?" "No, that was your aunt. Grandma and them are planning a cruise." "Wow!" Aiden jumped up excitedly. "Are we going too?" Amy smiled at her son's joy-filled face. He rarely took vacations. After Michael's death, she had immersed herself in work, making financial security her top priority. Aiden might have paid the price for that. Maybe. But I can't promise. I need to check my work schedule first. But in her heart, her decision was already forming. Family time was precious. Carol and Vanessa were her family, at least, that's what she believed. Amy gazed out the window. She could see the bay stretching beyond the skyscrapers. Somewhere, her intuition was sending a small warning, but she ignored it. Instead, she thought about her son's smile and the memories a family trip might create. "I'm so glad you could come, Amy," Carol placed her hand on her daughter's shoulder. San Francisco's port basked in the morning sunlight, bustling with activity. The luxury liner, Ocean Princess, was docked at the pier, its massive white hull gleaming against the blue sky. Amy nodded with a smile. "I'm surprised you planned such a wonderful trip, Mom." "Life needs some enjoyment," Carol said. She wore designer sunglasses and a flashy hat, drawing attention from other passengers. "Especially for someone like you who's always working." Vanessa, wearing a flashy summer dress, was taking selfies repeatedly. "I can get the perfect Instagram post with this background," she exclaimed excitedly. "I heard there are celebrities on board." Aiden looked up at the ship, his eyes shining. "It's so big. Is there a pool inside?" "Of course, young man," Carol answered indifferently. Her eyes were already scanning the other passengers on the pier, particularly the male passengers. Amy put her arm around Aiden's shoulders and explained, "There's a pool, a movie theater, and activity rooms for children." Taking time off and allowing Aiden to miss school hadn't been easy, but Amy was satisfied with her decision. Seeing Aiden's excited expression made it all worthwhile. "Time for boarding procedures," Carol said. She was whispering with Vanessa, and both seemed satisfied about something, smiling. Amy felt a bit nervous. "Do we have everything? Passports?" Vanessa rolled her eyes. "You don't always have to worry so much. Just enjoy yourself." At the boarding counter, uniformed staff greeted them with smiles. "Good morning. May I have your reservation number, please?" Carol confidently presented the reservation confirmation. "The Wilson party." While the staff verified the information, Amy looked around. There were many other families, with children jumping around excitedly. Aiden quietly held her hand, his chest swelling with anticipation. The staff member confirmed their names while handing out boarding cards. Then, he showed a slightly confused expression. "It seems I can't find a reservation for Aiden Wilson." Amy's heart skipped a beat. "My son's name isn't listed." The staff member checked the computer again. "I'm sorry, but the reservation for this party is for 3 people. Amy looked at Carol in confusion. "There must be some mistake, right?" Carol hesitated momentarily, but quickly covered it with a smile. "Oh, sorry. This is a family-only reservation." "What are you saying?" Amy's voice had anger mixed in. "Aiden is my family. Technically." Carol seemed to be choosing her words carefully. This promotion is for adults. Children require an additional fee. Vanessa patted Amy's shoulder. Thanks for bringing us. Saved us taxi fare. Amy froze. The meaning of her sister's words hit her. She looked at both their faces alternately. Carol seemed a bit uncomfortable, but Vanessa was almost proud. You never intended for us to board from the beginning? Amy's voice trembled. Carol lowered her voice. You can board. This cruise is a great opportunity to meet people. You should enjoy it. It's time to start a new life after being a single mother for 5 years. Aiden pulled Amy's hand. In a small voice, he asked, Mom, am I not family? His blue eyes shimmered with tears. Amy looked at her son, her heart aching at his hurt expression. Then she looked up at her mother and sister. For the first time, she felt like she was seeing their true selves. You. She was at a loss for words. Feelings of anger and betrayal overwhelmed her. Carol checked her watch irritably. Well, make up your mind. Boarding time is approaching. Aiden can wait at the Port Cafe. He just needs to find his way back home. Or we could send him back to your place, Vanessa suggested. He's old enough to stay by himself until we return, isn't he? Amy felt Aiden's hand trembling in hers. He was desperately trying to hold back tears. Around them, passengers were happily boarding the ship. Families smiling, couples gazing lovingly at each other, and the cold calculation of her family. The contrast was so stark that Amy felt dizzy for a moment. Carol didn't even try to hide her irritation. You've sacrificed enough of your life for the child. It's time to think about yourself a little. Amy took a deep breath, firmly held her son's hand, and silently began to walk away. Amy! Carol called from behind. Are you joking? You're going to miss an opportunity like this. Amy didn't look back. In her mind, the address of Michael's parents surfaced. Let's just go, Mom, Vanessa's voice could be heard. She's always been stubborn. We can have fun without her. Amy looked down at Aiden. He seemed confused but didn't leave her side. Where are we going? Aiden asked in a small voice. To Grandpa and Grandma's, Amy answered gently. We're going to visit Robert and Martha. Really? A small light of hope lit up Aiden's face. But what about the cruise? Amy put her arm around her son's shoulders as they walked towards the parking lot. Sometimes, the unexpected turns into the best adventure. She didn't look back. But in her heart, something broke, while something else grew stronger. While feeling the pain of betrayal from her mother and sister, she also felt a strange relief at finally seeing their true nature. As she got into the car, Amy looked at the luggage piled in the back seat. Clothes and sunscreen prepared for the cruise, things that should have been wasted. But now, she was taking them to a new destination. Ready? She asked Aiden. Aiden nodded. There was still sadness in his eyes, but there was also trust. He believed in his mother. Amy started the engine. In her mind, she was already planning to call Michael's parents. They would welcome the two with open arms. As she drove away from the port, she saw the huge cruise ship in the rearview mirror. Its white hull gleamed under the sun, carrying her mother and sister away from her life. But Amy smiled. Warm Bay Area sunshine poured down on Robert and Martha's spacious garden. Light filtering through the trees created dappled patterns on the ground, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of early summer. Higher! Aiden's voice echoed throughout the garden. Robert laughed as he pushed his grandson on the swing. A retired lawyer, his gaze still held sharp intelligence. Each time Aiden soared high, Robert felt a warmth in his chest at seeing Michael's resemblance. Martha came out of the house and stood on the porch. As she fixed her silver hair, she watched her husband and grandson. Behind her gentle smile, the sadness of losing her son 5 years ago still lurked, but she found joy in the new bond with her grandson. "Aiden, the lemonade is ready," Martha called out. "Great." Aiden signaled his grandfather to stop the swing. "Grandpa, let's drink together." Robert nodded and took his grandson's small hand. Martha smiled as she watched the two head toward the house. This unexpected visit had breathed new life into their home. In the kitchen, Amy was helping Martha. As she took fruit from the refrigerator, she watched her son and father-in-law through the window. "Aiden really seems to like it here," Martha said. "Last night was the first time in a long while that he slept so soundly." Amy smiled. "Thank you for accepting our sudden visit." Yesterday, when she called from the port, Robert and Martha welcomed them without a moment's hesitation. When Amy explained the situation, their expressions changed to anger, but it was directed not at her, but at Carol and Vanessa. "Unbelievable," Robert had said yesterday after hearing the story. What were those two thinking? Sitting at the dining table, Robert set aside his newspaper. "I started some investigations this morning." Amy frowned. "Investigations?" "About Carol and Vanessa's financial situation," he lowered his voice. "I still have friends in the legal profession. Some interesting information has come up about their debts." Martha lightly tapped her husband's arm. "Robert, let's not talk about that now." She turned to Amy. "We've planned a wonderful vacation for you. Let's go to our cottage along the Santa Cruz coast. Aiden will love the ocean." Amy's heart swelled with gratitude. This was what family meant, people who offer unconditional love and support. The doorbell rang, and Amy turned in surprise. While Martha went to answer, Amy felt anxious. "Amy," Martha returned to the living room. "It's your father." Amy was surprised. She hadn't been in contact with her father for months. Even after divorcing her mother Carol, he continued to provide regular financial support. This had created subtle tension in the relationship between Carol and Amy. "Bill," Robert stood up and shook hands with him like an old friend. The two men had met before and had built a relationship of mutual respect. "I heard what happened." Bill looked at his daughter from behind his glasses. "What Carol and Vanessa did." Amy was surprised. "How did you know?" "Martha called me," Bill answered succinctly. He was a man who struggled with emotional expression, but the anger in his gaze was evident. "I took immediate action." "What do you mean?" Amy became anxious. "I've stopped the monthly payments to Carol," Bill said calmly. "She relied too much on my support. That's what made her become so arrogant." "But, Dad." "Don't worry," Bill sat down in a chair. "I've given her plenty of warning. The days of using my money for extravagance are over. Especially if she's going to hurt my grandson and you in the process." At that moment, Aiden and Robert came into the kitchen. Aiden, holding lemonade, seemed to be having some secret conversation with his grandfather. When he saw Bill, he hesitated for a moment but quickly ran over. "Grandpa." Bill's stern expression softened. He hugged his grandson, seeing Michael in the boy's figure. "You've grown." Amy felt a warmth in her chest as she watched her father and son. Around her was family in the truest sense. She was deeply grateful that she had secured Aiden's education fund with Michael's insurance money. The fact that her mother and sister might have been targeting it was painful, but she had protected her son's future. That afternoon, the adults gathered on the porch, watching Aiden play in the garden. "I wonder how the cruise is going," Amy thought aloud. "Probably not as they dreamed," Robert laughed. "From my research, I hear this cruise has special events for single seniors. Carol is definitely on the hunt, it seems." Martha sighed lightly. "They'll face the consequences of their actions." Those words became prophetic. A few days later, Amy's smartphone began receiving consecutive calls from an unknown number. She continued to ignore them, but eventually, a text message arrived. "Please. I'm in terrible trouble. Help me." It was from Vanessa. Amy, who had been spending peaceful time at the Santa Cruz cottage, thought about her mother and sister for the first time when she read the message. She watched Aiden catching crabs with Robert on the beach and debated whether to reply to the message. That night, while Martha was preparing dinner, Amy sat on the porch, gazing at the ocean. Robert sat down beside her. "Something seems to be troubling you," he said gently. Amy hesitantly told him about Vanessa's message. Robert listened with a serious expression. "They are definitely in trouble," he said. "According to my sources, there were some issues on the cruise. Carol received warnings from the captain, and she began to be avoided by the wealthy men she was targeting. Add to that your father stopping his support and Vanessa's spending habits." He shook his head. "I think they're in quite a difficult financial situation." Amy was hit with complex emotions. Anger at being betrayed, yet love for her family, and concern about the impact on Aiden. "What do you think I should do?" she asked Robert. Robert gazed at the ocean, silent for a while. "That's for you to decide, Amy. Just remember, you can't choose your family. But you can choose how to deal with them." From the cottage, they could hear Aiden's laughter. He seemed to be baking cookies with Martha. Amy took out her smartphone and sent Vanessa a short message. "When and where should we meet?" The reply came immediately. "Tomorrow, at your apartment." "Thank you so much." Amy looked at Robert. "I need to go back to San Francisco tomorrow." Robert nodded. "Let's go together. Aiden can stay with us." "No," Amy said slowly. "Aiden will come with me. He's a part of the family, and he needs to learn how to face family issues." Robert looked at her with surprise, but his expression quickly changed to understanding and respect. "Michael would be proud of you." When the doorbell of Amy's apartment rang, she instantly felt tension running through her body. Aiden sat next to her on the sofa, looking up at his mother with an anxious expression. "It's okay," Amy lightly patted her son's shoulder, smiling encouragingly. In the corner of the living room, Robert and Martha sat quietly. They were present at Amy's request. Opening the door, she found Carol and Vanessa looking haggard. Both were without their usual flashy clothes or accessories, and their tired faces had no makeup. "Amy." Carol's voice trembled. Her eyes were moist with tears. "Thank you for seeing us." Amy said nothing and invited them in. When they entered the living room and noticed Robert and Martha's presence, they momentarily faltered. "Sit down," Amy said calmly. Carol and Vanessa sat on the sofa. When Vanessa's gaze turned to Aiden, a color of regret appeared on her face. Aiden averted his eyes from her and unconsciously held Amy's hand. "First, I want to say," Carol said, wiping away tears, "I'm truly sorry. What we did is unforgivable." Vanessa nodded too. "We only thought about ourselves. Especially me." She choked on her words. Amy observed the two calmly. Their regret seemed genuine, but it was difficult to judge whether it was due to their desperate situation or true reflection. "What situation are you in now?" Amy asked. "I can't pay the rent," Carol admitted frankly. "With Bill's support gone, my savings are almost depleted. After the incidents on the cruise, my reputation has been damaged." "I heard you caused a commotion with the captain," Amy said. Carol lowered her eyes in embarrassment. "I was a bit too aggressive towards a certain gentleman. Mom drank too much and made a scene in the ship's VIP lounge," Vanessa added information. "After that, we were avoided by other passengers." "And you?" Amy turned to Vanessa. Vanessa said, choosing her words. I exceeded my credit card limit. I was fired from the store, and I'm behind on rent. Amy took a deep breath and chose her words. What do you want? A temporary place to stay and a little help, Carol said carefully. Just until we get back on our feet. A heavy silence flowed through the room. Robert cleared his throat, asking permission to speak. From a legal perspective, he began quietly, Carol and Vanessa's actions might have elements of fraud. If they intentionally brought Amy and Aiden to the port with no intention of letting them board. Martha joined in. And from a psychological standpoint, the emotional damage caused to Aiden, in particular, is immeasurable. Carol and Vanessa were at a loss for words, staring only at the floor. Then, an unexpected voice spoke. I want to forgive Grandma and Aunt. Everyone looked at Aiden. The 10-year-old boy stood up quietly, taking a deep breath as if to gather courage. Everyone makes mistakes, he continued. When I lost Dad, I hurt my friends out of anger, but my teacher forgave me. But the teacher said that forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. The room fell completely silent. Amy looked at her son with a mixture of surprise and pride. Carol reached out toward her grandson but stopped midway. I haven't been the kind of grandmother deserving of your kindness. Amy stared at Aiden, then looked at her mother and sister. Complex emotions intertwined in her heart. Anger, the pain of betrayal, but simultaneously, the beauty of the mercy Aiden had shown. I can't give an answer right away, Amy finally said. But Aiden's words carry weight. Complete forgiveness is still difficult, but I'll consider conditional assistance. Robert and Martha exchanged surprised looks but quickly showed understanding. Together, they had walked the difficult path of forgiving the person responsible for the accident that took Michael's life. They knew firsthand that forgiveness brings healing. I'll give you a 1-year grace period, Amy continued. During that time, I want to see sincere efforts towards independence and relationship repair. Hope returned to Carol and Vanessa's faces. What are the conditions? Vanessa timidly asked. First, both of you will receive vocational counseling, Amy stated clearly. And create a debt repayment plan. I will provide financial assistance, but it's not unlimited. And most importantly, she looked toward Aiden, becoming a real family for him. That's not a right but something earned through effort. Carol nodded. In her eyes now, true regret and determination were visible. I promise. Vanessa also agreed. Thank you for the chance. I won't betray you. Amy didn't fully believe yet, but she chose to have hope. Family bonds can be reconnected even if broken, sometimes coming back stronger. Aiden stood up from the sofa and quietly approached Carol and Vanessa. Can we all have dinner together? He asked. Mom's lasagna is really delicious. Amy smiled as she felt the tension in the room gradually dissolving. She knew this wasn't complete reconciliation, that it would take time to regain trust. But today was a step toward a new beginning. 6 months later, San Francisco's autumn sunlight was painting the city gold. Looking out the office window, Amy reflected on the changes over the past half-year. The phone rang, pulling her back from her thoughts. It's your mother, the secretary announced. Thank you, put her through, Amy said, taking a deep breath. Amy, Carol's voice had shed its former arrogance. Can I attend Aiden's baseball game this afternoon? Of course, Mom, Amy smiled. I'll finish work early. Carol now volunteers at a local senior center. What began as court-ordered community service had gradually become meaningful to her. Interaction with less fortunate elderly people was slowly changing her values. After hanging up, Amy received a text message from Vanessa on her cell phone. Want to go shopping for Aiden's birthday present together? Do you have time this Saturday? Vanessa had changed too. She had joined a vocational training program and started an internship at a small accounting firm. It wasn't a position Amy had arranged, she had found it herself. Her spending habits weren't completely cured, but she was seriously adhering to her debt repayment plan. Weekend dinners at Amy's home had become a tradition. Michael's parents occasionally participated, and the tension with Carol was gradually easing. Of course, sometimes old habits would surface. Carol might start gossiping about a wealthy widow in the neighborhood, or Vanessa might show up wearing expensive brand items. But the biggest change was seen in Aiden. Now 11 years old, he was more confident, with good relationships at school and with friends. Having overcome the family crisis, he had developed strength and compassion. That evening, after Aiden's baseball game, they held a small picnic in the park. "Look what I found, a photo," Martha said, opening an album. There was a picture of Michael as a child. "He looks just like Aiden." Carol peered at the photo and quietly nodded. "He really does." She gazed at her grandson, seeing the late son-in-law's likeness in his face. "I may have been avoiding seeing it all this time." Robert sat down beside her, beer in hand. "People can change." "Rather, people are constantly changing." "Yes," Carol quietly agreed. "In my case, the change for the better came too late, but..." "It's never too late," Amy joined in. "What matters is how we walk from here." Aiden began to get bored with the adults' conversation and ran off to play with other children. Watching his figure illuminated by the sunset, Amy felt her heart warm. The definition of family had forever changed for her. It wasn't just blood ties, but supporting each other, encouraging growth, and sometimes showing tough love. And most importantly, what Aiden had taught her, the possibility of forgiveness and new beginnings. The late autumn wind danced around them, seeming to carry hope for the future.